Everyone, and welcome to the June 4th meeting of the Murrieta City Council is now called to order. Madam City Clerk, can you please call roll to determine a quorum? Here.
Councilmember DeForest.
Here.
Thank you. Councilmember Lavelle.
Here.
Councilmember Holliday.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Stone. I'm so sorry.
Demoted.
Let's try this again. Mayor Pro Tem Warren
I'm here.
and Mayor Stone.
Present. Thank you.
My apologies, Madam Mayor. Let the record reflect that all members
It's
are
okay.
present.
I love it. So perfect. Madam City Clerk, are there any Madam City Clerk, would you please go over the closed session agenda?
I'd like to note for the record that there are no public comments for closed session items.
Thank
Okay,
you.
the city council will meet in closed session on 3 items. CS1, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation. The city council will conduct a closed session pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.94 because the city is considering whether to initiate litigation in one case. The city council will also meet in CS2, conference with labor negotiators. City council will conduct a closed session pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6 with the city manager, the city attorney, and the city's negotiators regarding labor negotiations with the Murrieta General Employees Association and the Murrieta Supervisors Association. And lastly, the city council will meet in CS3, Public Employee Performance Evaluation and Compensation. The city council will hold a closed session with the city's personnel officer, the city manager, pursuant to Government Code Sections 54957 and 54957.6a to conduct an employee performance evaluation of the city manager and to discuss the salary, compensation, and fringe benefits provided to the city manager.
Thank you, Madam City Clerk. With that, we are going to go to recess into closed session, and we will reconvene at 6 p.m. for the regular meeting. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the June 4th regular meeting of the Murrieta City Council is now called to order. Madam City Attorney, please provide a report from closed session.
The City Council met in closed session on 3 items. The first was to confer with legal counsel pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D4 to consider initiating litigation in one case. The City Council unanimously authorized initiating litigation, a nuisance action against the property owner at 39610 Medina Court. The second item was to confer with labor negotiators pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.6 regarding negotiations with 2 of those unions. On this item, the council was updated, no reportable action. The third item was a public employee performance evaluation and compensation discussion for the position of city manager. On this item, the council had a discussion, no reportable action. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam City Attorney. Madam City Clerk, can you please call roll to determine a quorum?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember DeForest.
Here.
Councilmember Lavelle.
Here.
Councilmember Holliday.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Warren.
Here.
Mayor Stone.
Present.
Let
Thank
the
you.
record reflect that all members are present.
Thank you, Madam City Clerk. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, if you would please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, be facilitated by Kimberly Ramirez, and remain standing for the invocation led by Pastor Lyndon Parsons with Murrieta Springs Seventh-day Adventist Christian Church. Please repeat after me. Right hand over the heart. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Shall we pray? Our loving Father in heaven, Lord, this evening as we come and ask a blessing upon this meeting, we take the opportunity to ask also for your blessing upon our mayor, our city council, our city officers and staff, and our police officers and our firefighters, asking you please bless them. Keep them all safe under your protection, for you declare that they are your servants, deserving then of of our support and our gratitude. Lord, we pray that you would please bless them with insight where insight is needed, with wisdom where wisdom is needed, and Lord, when courage is called for, that courage would be provided. Bless them, Father, we ask in the name of Christ, our Lord and Savior. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. Moving on to presentations, Madam City Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The first presentation is actually a proclamation on a retirement of Jennifer Matoyer. So if I could please have you, Jennifer, come on up. Here she is.
Jennifer
Yes, ma'am.
Matoyer first started her career with the City of Murrieta as a police officer in 2004 and has served on a variety of assignments from patrol officer to school resource officer. And whereas Jennifer Matoyer's dedication to enhancing public safety has led her to being a pillar for community events such as the Trunk or Treat and Every 15 Minutes. And whereas Jennifer Matoyer's received numerous awards in recognition for her commitment, which includes the 2013 Tip Heroes with Heart Award, 2017 Leanna McConaughey Award 2022, Amy Hicks Distinguished Award 2024, and LEAC Achievement Award, among many others. And whereas after 20 years of public service, Jennifer Matoyer will always be part of the Murrieta family, and such we congratulate Jennifer Matoyer for her retirement and wish her the best of luck in all future endeavors, such as following her passion for travel, hiking, and exploring. Now, therefore, let it be resolved that the City Council of the City of Murrieta does hereby commend Jennifer Matoyer for her service and dedication to the residents of Murrieta. And Jennifer, all 5 of us have signed your proclamation. So congratulations.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Before we join you for a picture, we'd like to give you a few minutes.
Yeah, this wasn't supposed to happen. I was supposed to write off quietly. So, yeah, I was tricked. I appreciate it. I appreciate my time here in Murrieta. I was given a lot of opportunity. It was kind of crazy. As much as I thought riding the bike and being on traffic was my favorite job at the department, my last position was actually my favorite. So being at the school and with the kids, the department gave me a lot of opportunity also to use my voice with the social media. So that was fun, huh, Chief? Sorry about the Legos, guys. So
We loved it. We loved it.
again, I appreciate it. I appreciate the time here. So thank you.
So Jennifer, I visited the Every 15 Minutes program, and I just want to let you know that I have never participated or watched it in any way, and I've heard about it. And what you did was so remarkable. I wish you would take that program and travel, not just in schools, but service clubs and educating people about driving under the influence. And I also want to let you know that the students really admire you and respect you. So again, thank you so much for your service. And if my fellow colleagues would join me down here, we'll take a quick picture. Moving on to the next presentation, it's Care Solis, Madam City Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. With Care Solace, I do have, I believe I have Anita Ward here.
Great. Thank you, Anita. You can come right here.
Mayor Stone, city council members, thank you so much for giving me a few minutes tonight. What I wanted to do is, and I'm thinking probably you're going to drive my presentation for me, but what I wanted to do is just share very briefly with you where we are, what we're seeing in terms of results, a few insights and trends that we're seeing that may help message differently, and then obviously take any questions you might have. So I'll just tell you next slide and we'll go from there. How's that? Please. So just by way of reminder, we're a hub that sits in the middle of the city. We navigate and manage care on behalf of all residents, all of the departments. And if you look at the next slide, you'll see that residents can access us with a phone call, a QR code, simply going to the website. What we're seeing in our time together is really quite remarkable. So first of all, I want to congratulate the city for actually pushing the momentum and pushing the message. By far, Murrieta is getting the message out better than other cities in Southern California, so thank you for your leadership. But already we have seen 879 service requests, calls to our care companions from your residents, as well as 434 where they're anonymously searching on their own. That may mean that they're just trying to get up the nerve or the trust or overcome the stigma to actually make a call, or they're navigating it on their own. So that's quite a bit of activity, quite a bit of engagement. On behalf of them, we have conducted 4,500 communications and made 3,800 phone calls to providers. So you can appreciate the difficulty around navigating. My most recently, one example is a young woman, 21 years old, single, looking for therapy, struggling with some substance abuse, but she wanted a Christian-based therapist and specifically wanted a woman and had TRICARE for her insurance. So that's the kind of thing that our care companions will navigate. I'm happy to report that we got her into care in a matter of days, but on average, we're placing people into care in 2.3 days and 2 appointments in under 10 days. And the appointment is very much contingent upon their schedule as well. So overall, I'm very excited about what we're seeing. Since our last report, we're seeing a more uptake in 2 other zip codes. It was predominantly 92562, but now we're seeing 92563 and 64 also beginning to demonstrate more activity. So the messaging is also hitting there. May I have the next slide, please? And I promise to keep it very brief. I could go forever on what we're seeing. You know that we also support the school districts, so I'm trying to combine the data so that you can see very quickly that between the city and the school district, we're hitting all of the age groups and supporting every age group in the city. So excited about that. Next, please. And you'll see I've also made the report available to you. So we do split out the data in that age group 18 to 65, so you can actually see with a more finite approach what that looks like. Females are more often accessing us. And this is the first month, I'm very excited to see this, but this is the first month in your data where the Hispanic callers and those asking for service have grown higher than our white population. So we're seeing some growth in messaging that is hitting that community as well. And you'll see a little bit of that is reflected in the languages of service. It's still predominantly English, but Spanish is beginning to grow as well. Next slide, please. This one excites me the most, and Councilmember Lavelle, I'm sure you'll get excited when you start to look at these too, but what really excites me is if you use public insurance and no insurance as a proxy for income, we are, more than half of the people we're helping have no insurance or on public insurance. So we're tapping into those most vulnerable communities, but I also thought that now that we've had a few months under our belts, that I would pull up the percentage of cases by insurance name. So we can also start to track those insurance plans as well and where those are going. Next slide, please. Haven't done this fast for a while. So I thought I would point out a bit of the data where I do think we could start to think about messaging, particularly with the summer months coming up, as you'll see in a moment, around young people. I compared the city along with the school district, and you'll see that levels of suicidal ideation, for me, are a little bit concerning. And when we dig into the data on the next slide, you're gonna see that that piece on the city side is predominantly 18 to 25-year-olds. So we have a young population here in Murrieta, and not unlike other cities, by the way, in the country, that are struggling with suicidal ideation and self-harm. So something to keep an eye on. That's combined with disruptive behavior, large percentages of disruptive behavior in the schools. But as we think about the summer months approaching, a lot of that then transfers to the city. So keeping on, perhaps we consider doing some messaging around self-harm and suicidal ideation during the summer months to try to speak to those children. Next slide, please. You'll see I also wanted to make sure that you could look at Murrieta against the county and against California in general, so you had some perspective of baseline. Next slide. Here's where I was describing that breakdown of the age groups, and you'll see there's lots of arrows on there, but really just designed to illustrate that it's that younger population, the 6 to 17 year and 18 to 25, where you're seeing higher levels of suicidal ideation. 18 to 25-year-olds, very high levels of depression. So while I'm not here to make any correlations, it's certainly something to be thinking about as we move forward, again, around messaging and how we might reach some of them. Next slide, please. And then I also broke it by ethnicity. So now that we see the Hispanic population beginning to do more utilization, pushing out messaging in Spanish, maybe even more appropriate, and then potentially looking at some of our more vulnerable communities where we may have some opportunities. I think there's only one more slide, please. Yes, this, I think, Mayor Stone, is always your favorite slide. But as we start to look at these and what the impacts look like, the advanced pathways, those are the most difficult. So if you think about therapy and teletherapy, you can see that that's a big piece of this, 37%. But we're also really tackling the more difficult ones, where somebody needs medication or needs access to a bed. But we're still seeing very high levels of assessments. So people who may be new don't know what's going on, but they're hearing your message, so they're reaching out, trying to figure out what is happening. And then as you look at the data itself, we try to also demonstrate for you in terms of individuals what that looks like and how many assessments and how many are in therapy. We track also teletherapy versus local in-person therapy, so we could track and see 60% of them are teletherapy, but again, it's a younger population making that choice. And then intervention, psychiatry, you can read the data for yourselves. But the suicidal ideation, where we're actually getting people into care, is something you and I often talk about. And I'm 150 people that we've been able to intervene, get into care, that it just makes my heart swell. So thank you for your leadership. I know that on the last slide just talks a little bit about what could we do next, where should we go, where should we take it. I know I had 3 minutes, I appreciate the 3 minutes, but if you want to look at the data deeper, obviously we can pull the raw data, we can do some analysis against it and pull it all together. So thank you so much for making a difference in all those lives.
Thank you, Anita. And as I had stated, if this program saved one life, it was worth it. Do you mind just sharing the story that you had shared with me at A Day in Her Shoes? Do you remember the story about how 3 people approached you?
Oh my goodness, yes. So we went to, it was a fabulous event. We went to A Day in Her Shoes, which was all about women leaders and empowerment. And we had a small table there with Care Solace. And I had people, I didn't expect it because how would they know? I literally had 3 women coming up thanking me. One brought her daughter with her saying, "Thank you for Care Solace. You got my daughter into care. I was struggling. I didn't know where to turn." So your messaging is getting out. There was a woman also who came early on into the program, and she herself was suicidal. And so we were able to navigate her into care, get that warm handoff, get her hospitalized. And so there were 3 people completely, unsolicited who walked up. So messaging is getting out. I might also share that the U.S. Conference of Mayors is going to recognize the city of Murrieta as a best practice. So as soon as I have that, I'll get that over to all of you for the effort that you're making around mental health for your residents. So
Thank you
you.
so much. Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues?
I have one question.
Yes, sir.
The data on the provider phone call to provider first time being seen, I think it was 9 days you mentioned
9 days to appointment.
to appointment. Have you seen an uptick in providers enrolling into the panel with Care Solace, or getting on?
Oh,
the
yes.
list?
In fact, I should probably add that onto our slides. So we do a lot of outreach now, trying to pull more and more providers on to into our network. So I don't know the numbers off the top
No,
of
you're
my
good.
head. I'm sorry,
If you
Councilman
have them
Liddell.
too, I would be interested in your gaps, like any grievance or any.
It's always beds.
Yeah. But
It's always beds.
I'm glad to hear that you are adding and you're
Yes.
continuing to market that. So
Yes,
that's great.
absolutely. And there are some really interesting now, opportunities in other cities as well that are border cities. And so we can place people across counties. And so, but I'll include that in the slides as well, in the data.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Any other comments or questions from my colleagues? Seeing none, thank you,
Thank you very
Anita,
much.
for your presentation. Appreciate it. Moving on to the approval of the agenda. It's been brought to my attention that Councilmember Holliday has requested that we take our agenda out of order to hear item number 17 before items 15 and 16 due to public interest. With that, can I get a motion and a second to approve the agenda? I have a motion from DeForest, second Holliday. Please vote.
Motion carries unanimously, 5-0.
Great.
Pardon the delay.
Thank you, Madam City Clerk. Moving on to administrative update. The city manager's administrative updates is the opportunity for the city manager to provide community updates as well as department or commission announcement on current or upcoming projects. Madam Assistant City Manager, will you be reporting this evening?
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor. We have 3 administrative updates this evening. The first is going to be on behalf of the Fire Department, and I'd like to invite Rachel Hollinger, our EOC coordinator, to come forward, along with Chief Malloy.
Good evening, Mayor Stone and Council. Thank you for giving us an opportunity to present tonight on our Water Watchers program. We're coming into summer, and summer is a time of year when firefighters and paramedics have some of their worst calls, and one of those types of calls is a needless backyard drowning. Being a paramedic myself, I can remember every single backyard drowning I've been on vividly because they're the calls that never leave you, and they're the calls that are very preventable, and I'm sure all of our firefighters and officers in the back of the room have that same experience. So, earlier this year, I challenged my staff. I'd like to come up with a water safety program that would have a deep impact in the safety of our community. And when I put that challenge out, our disaster preparedness coordinator, Rachel Hollinger, who is a mother of young children, in fact, one of her children is celebrating her first birthday today,
Happy birthday.
gladly took on that challenge and put forward a tremendous program, which we're excited to present to you tonight. So I want to turn it over to Rachel, who headed up this program.
All right, thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. Let me make sure I can work this thing. All right, perfect. So what we noticed was that there has been a 100% uptick in the amount of drownings that Murrieta has been experiencing. As you've seen in 2018 and 2019, we had 4 and 2. And then in 2022, post-COVID, we've shot up to 7 and then 8. So far this year, we've had 1 drowning. But we haven't hit the summer months, so there's potential for that number to increase still. Of the 22 drownings that I mentioned since 2018, 19 of those were children under the age of 10 years old. 17 of the patients were treated and transported, and 2 patients were deceased on the scene. So what we started with the Water Watchers program is essentially, if you're going to be the designated water watcher, you have the eyes on the children in the pool. You wear this placard that designates you, and you watch them for about 20-minute intervals at a time if there's other adults present, so you each can take a turn. While you're overseeing them, you're not on your phone distracted, you're not under the influence. 100% of the drownings in pools are preventable. So that's what we want to get with the Water Watcher program. Thank you. I also have brochures here. We've been handing these out to the community at the different public engagement events that we've had so far, the Murrieta Firefighters Barbecue, the State of the City. We've also partnered with a few of the businesses in Murrieta. 2 of them are the swim schools, and 1 spa and pool supply store so far, and I'm reaching out and continuing. So far, we've given out 200 of the Water Watcher cards, so I'm going to have to order more because we are officially, you took the last ones of my batch, so please use them. Is there any questions for me?
Any questions? Seeing none. Rachel, thank you. Chief Malloy, fantastic. And my colleagues always tease me because I always say out of the box, and this was definitely an out of the box program. I think it will be so successful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So continuing on the water aquatics theme, next we'll have Brian Ambrose, our Community Services Director, giving an update on the pool for the summer.
And continuing on the good news tonight, we are happy to announce that the city and Murrieta Valley Unified School District have solidified the plan to use Vista Murrieta as our pool this year for the public. The season will begin next Monday, June 10th, at Vista Murrieta High School. Through August 10th, the schedule will be as follows. Monday and Wednesday, 7 a.m. until 4:30 p.m. Saturday, 9 a.m. until 4:30 p.m. Sunday, 7:30 a.m. to 3 p.m. Beginning August 17th and continuing through September, the pool will be open only on Saturdays from noon until 4 o'clock. Lifeguarding services and swimming lessons will be provided by the Swimming Swan. Signups can be found at their website, and we'll place that on our social media outlets. Water exercises will continue to be offered through the city, and registration can be found on our city website through CSD's page. Similar to prior years, public swim and lap swim will be offered during operating hours. Please follow social media and stay updated on pool offerings, schedules, and cost. And I do want to say a special thank you to Murrieta Valley Unified School District. They really stepped forward to partner with us and accommodate our residents. So thank you very much.
Brian, I have a favor. Do you mind emailing council your report, please?
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you.
And you'll see, we were waiting for some final insurance from the lifeguarding firm. We just got that all finalized this morning. You're going to see us blast out a lot on social media.
Great, thank you so
So
much.
we'll send all that to you.
Are there any questions or comments for Brian from council? Seeing none, thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. And next up, we have Christina Davies, our Public Information Officer, providing a community update.
Well, I don't have a pool or water updates. Sorry, everyone, but I will say I do have a Water Watcher badge. Used it this weekend, and I think, I was kind of a little strong on making sure that whoever had their eyes on the pool. But hey, no drownings. All right, so what is going on in Murrieta? Well, of course, we always have a lot of events going on, but first I wanted to start off with that we are going to be having a first-time Voters Academy. Thank you to the Clerk's Department. And this is gonna be a 7-week academy, and this is for essentially the first-time voters, so the people 17 to 21 years old, and you're gonna be learning about the impacts of voting, ballots, elections, and campaigning. And these will be weekly sessions on Thursdays from 5 to 6, and the start date for that is on June 27th. So if there is anyone in the audience right now or anyone watching online, there is a QR code. So if you're watching online and your kiddo is nearby, you can scan that QR code and sign up for the First Time Voters Academy. As far as events goes, we have our Father's Day car show, and that is going to be happening on June 15th to the 8th, and that is at the California Oaks Sports Park. I put the address up there. And then, of course, we have our market nights, and that is going to be this Thursday, so June 6th and June 20th. I haven't done this in a while, but a little bit of a weather update. It's going to be clear and hot on Thursday, so upper 80s out there, so be sure to drink some water. Moving on with more events, Coffee with the City, that's going to be Tuesday, June 25th. At 8:30 at the MIC, and again, I put that address up there. And of course, our birthday bash is gonna be on June 29th from 2 to 9, also at the California Oaks Sports Park. Also, again, I put that address up there. And then I also just wanted, we wanted to do a little bit of a thank you to Supervisor Chuck Washington's office. We wanted just to say thank you for funding the installation of the emergency fire access gate at the Knowles community. Safety of our community is a top priority, so we just wanted to say thank you for your support and keeping our seniors safe. And last but not least, always we want to remind people that we are a connected community. So please, if you want to get our newsletters, follow social media or any updates, look at jobs, you can visit the link up there, murrietaca.gov/connect. Any questions? Just ran
Seeing
through
none.
that.
Thank you so
Super.
much, Christina. Thank you.
That concludes our update tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Assistant City Manager Crane. Moving on to governing body commission, committee, boards, and reports. The governing body reports is an opportunity for council to provide a brief report on conferences, seminars, commission, committees, and board meeting in attendance. Councilmember DeForest.
Thank you, Mayor. I was unable to attend WRCOG yesterday, but I know my alternate attended, so I thank you very much. But nothing to report out and no committees, so thank you so much.
Thank you. Councilmember Lavelle.
I have no governing body reports. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Holliday.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I attended with the mayor the Code Enforcement Ad Hoc Committee kickoff meeting. So we started that process and were immediately given homework. Thank you, Assistant City Manager Crane. Do you have your homework done?
No.
I don't either.
I'm the mayor. I'm busy.
So I think we've got to get our homework done by tomorrow. And then on yesterday, went to the Regional Conservation Authority. Wasn't much to report out there. They approved their budget, which is not a huge budget, but lots of habitat species being saved through that organization. So it is doing some good work, and they are revising their trying to revise their process a little bit to make it a little easier. Since it's 20 years old, it needs a little revising. And then I did attend Western Regional Council of Governments, which they gave a report on the IREN program, which you are familiar with now. And they have up to 70% funding, this is for you, madam, 70% reimbursement for solar projects for city buildings. So that's a new thing they just started. It used to be 35%, and they've doubled it because they're not spending all that money every year. And so I think, I know we're already participating in it, but we probably need to take a look and see if we have anything that makes sense and get some of that money to get solar projects going. And that's all I have to report.
Thank you, Councilmember Holliday. MPT Warren.
Thank you, Mayor. I was quite busy attending the designated committees that I am on. I did want to point out that at the RTA meeting, the Riverside Transit Agency, we were given an update on the Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan. I know that everybody has heard on the news of all of the crime that's been happening in other counties. And so we updated our plan and we approved it, and it's a very robust plan with lots of security measures in place. So that gave us all a little bit of comfort. Also, youth ride for free from July 1st, 24 to June 30th of 25. All they have to do is show their ID that they're 18 years or younger, and they can ride the bus system for free in Riverside County. Also, 25-cent rides all summer, June 1st to August 31st, and that does exclude Dial-A-Ride. The other thing that we did do, as I wanted to let you know, that we approved the proposed fiscal year 24-25 operating budget and the capital budget for fiscal year 25-27 for short-range transit plan. And ridership, I should say, was up 11% from this same time last year. And overall for fiscal year, it's up 11.1. And there will be no bus service on June 13th, which is Juneteenth, I'm sorry. In honor of Juneteenth, there will be no bus service on Wednesday, June 19th. So I wanted everybody to be aware of that. And that concludes my report. Thank you very much.
Thank you, MPT Warren. With regards to my governing body announcements, I attended the Southern California Associated Governments Conference of General Meeting. There's nothing to report out. I attended the Southwest Riverside County Elected Leaders Collaborative Meeting where RTA was in attendance. And if you don't know what the collaborative is focused on, it's on transportation and traffic. where all 5 cities have come to the table to figure out how we're going to mitigate our congestion. Caltrans is no longer expanding or building freeways, and with the growth that we're seeing in the Southwest region, in addition to the unincorporated area, we are beginning to have these discussions today because you all know how slow government works. In addition, I flew to Sacramento to lobby for infrastructure. We addressed Keller Road, which we are hoping will be out of the environmental process hopefully by August, which means that we can go ahead and raise the $29 million gap with facilitating Keller Road, which would give our hospitals access. In addition, we lobbied for a fire tower for our firefighters as well. They are in the back. In addition, I was with Council Member Holliday. We had our first code enforcement ad hoc committee, and I've been very vocal about addressing the policy within the code enforcement and making sure that we are consistent. And lastly, I attended ICSC, which is the International Convention of Shopping Centers, where we were all in Las Vegas lobbying for more businesses, more restaurants, more entertainment for the city of Murrieta. And that concludes my governing body announcements. Moving on to public comments. This is for non-agenda items. Any person may address the governing bodies on any subject pertaining to city business. Normally, no action may be considered or taken by the governing bodies or any matter not listed on the agenda. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes. Requests for more time must be made to the city clerk with a timing limit to a maximum of 6 minutes. Madam City Clerk, are there any public comments?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If I can please have Faye Wands.
I come here tonight to voice my opinion on all the new apartments being built. I don't know for sure, but I believe it's the results of all the zoning changes made in the last few years. I think the money-hungry land developers, who are not all Murrieta residents, could care less about the problems the zone changes will cause. And of course, we will have to have more car washes to accommodate the new residents at the apartments because they won't have anywhere to wash their cars. My main concern that the first responders will not be able to respond as fast as they have in the past. I have not heard of any new police officers or firemen being being hired to maintain the current level of service. We have been proud to say in the last few years that the FBI has rated Murrieta as one of the safest cities of our size in the nation. With the hundreds or perhaps thousands of new people that the apartments will bring, it is unrealistic to think our great first responders can respond as quickly as we have been fortunate to have in the past. They work so hard to improve their response time with extra training and certifications, but without the manpower, there's no way they're going to be able to have the same service and safety. Another problem is the new children that will go to our schools. The kids are not the problem, it is the lack of more teachers to be able to teach and not just be babysitters. We already have a major traffic problem. It will only get worse as the apartments are filled with more people. Even if the city has plans to work on our roads, it will take a long time to accomplish. The right lane going into Sam's Club has been in the works for years. The widening of Murrieta Hot Springs Road has been in the works for years. How many more years before the road improvements will be finished to make our streets safe? Thank you.
Thank you.
Laverne Davis.
Madam Mayor and members of the council, good evening. My name is Laverne Davis, a Colony resident. I come before you to address a matter of critical importance to the safety and well-being of our community. The escalating traffic concerns at the exit of our 55-plus community on Nutmeg and Camino Esperante. Our neighborhood is, as you know, experiencing significant growth with the construction of new housing in the vicinity. This influx of residents has inevitably led to a surge in traffic volume, particularly along the roads surrounding our community. As a resident of this neighborhood and someone who deeply cares about the safety of our fellow residents, I have previously brought forth the suggestion of installing a traffic signal at the exit of our community, as well as another Colony resident a few years back. Regrettably, these proposals were not met with approval. However, the current circumstances, I feel, demand a reassessment of this decision. The exponential increase in traffic poses a clear and present danger to the safety of pedestrians and drivers alike. It is my firm belief that a thorough traffic study is warranted to evaluate the situation objectively and determine the most effective measures to mitigate the risk posed by this traffic influx. I urge you, Madam Mayor, and members of the council to reconsider my proposal and prioritize the safety of our community members by initiating a comprehensive traffic study. Such a study would not only provide invaluable insights into the current traffic conditions, but also serve as the basis for informed decision-making regarding potential traffic management solutions, including the installation of a traffic signal. I humbly ask you to heed the concern of the residents and take proactive steps to address the pressing issue of traffic safety in our community. Thank you.
Ms. Davis, I'm gonna have you talk to Mr. Mailing. Mr. Mailing, do you mind touching base with Ms. Davis? Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, Ms. Davis.
Alexandra Peterson.
Hello, I'm Alexandra Peterson. Please excuse the mask, I'm having allergies today. Thank you for your time. It's quite an honor to be in front of all of you. And I want to start by saying that I used to live in San Diego, and 2 years ago, my family, we moved up here because Murrieta is such a safe area. And so I'm very blessed in that Murrieta has done so much for my family in such a short amount of time. I have very few complaints because it is just such a great area. The only thing I really wanted to bring up was probably a minor concern in terms of everything else that was discussed today, but for my family, it's a major concern, which is dogs being off leash. I live by Valley Vista Park, which is a very popular park. It's actually a smaller park that's near our major sports park, and it is not a dog park, but there are frequent large dogs that are off leash. On the last 2 weeks, I have been attacked by 2 dogs. My dog was also attacked, my poor little chubby pug, and so she is okay, and I am okay, but my concern is that with it being summer, it's actually a high-frequency park being used for children to practice sports, especially when it comes to soccer. And so my concern is that while I can kind of hold my own weight when it comes to a large animal, the small children in the area, I am not so certain. And the other issue is that there has been an increase in dogs that have been running through the streets. And so I just want to have a proposal that maybe we look into things like additional signs. I know that I've already been in contact with animal control, and they did an exemplary job with assisting me when my dog was attacked the first time. And I have their number, and I know that we are to call. The difficulty is when the attack happens and then the owner leaves the location. And so I'm not sure if further steps could be taken, but I just wanted it to be on note that it is something that's happening, and I hope that we could decrease that over time so that way the park could be safer again for my family and for other families. And thank you for your time. I appreciate all of your efforts.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I do have Amy Edgeworth and I have an Elena Mado who has donated 3 minutes of her time, if that is the pleasure of the mayor.
Yes, ma'am.
Hello, good evening, Murrieta City Council, city staff, and fellow residents. I'm Amy Edgeworth, founder of Pearl Center for Creative Arts, and I'm here once again to ask for prioritization of our beloved Murrieta Train project. And tonight, instead of asking you to close your eyes and imagine a Murrieta with a train car downtown bringing us all together, I want you to close your eyes. Oh. Is that working? I would like you to close your eyes, or I would actually like you to open your eyes and look at a Murrieta without Pearl. So I ask you to personally visit the corner of New Clay and B Streets where the old train depot once stood, and imagine how missing out on this opportunity would be a great loss for our community, especially if the Murrieta Train project ends up benefiting another city instead of our beloved hometown. A missed call to action and missed catalyst for economic and social vitality. But if you don't believe in arts and nonprofits as economic drivers, then maybe none of this matters, because I understand that some people might question the legitimate economical contributions of arts and nonprofits in general, mistakenly believing they are economic underperformers. Recently, I was invited to attend the Inland Empire Community Collaborative at Riverside City Hall, where they empowered nonprofits like mine by offering concrete stats of how organizations like the Pearl Center have a much bigger economic impact than you might think. The collaborative highlighted how arts and cultural nonprofits are critical drivers of economic growth and community development, and I stored in my memory the term creative economy and creative workforce development, phrases I encourage you to keep in mind as well. Because if you take away one thing from today, I hope it's the belief in arts as economic drivers. Then you will start to see the potential immediate economic benefits and the creative workforce development we aim to provide through programs that will not only enhance individual growth, but also contribute to the broader economic health of our community. And maybe you already recognize that creativity is the cornerstone of innovation, that the arts spark the very creativity that business leaders speak. Well, we aim to cultivate this creativity, ensuring that Murrieta remains a leader in innovative thinking and problem solving. And even as more STEM acronyms are adding the arts and becoming STEAM, it's important to recognize that even biotech startups need artists to create renderings, logos, marketing, and communications, as just a few examples. And if it all comes down to economic impact, not simply innovation, I'd like to offer you some extra good news. For every dollar invested in the nonprofit arts sector, $6 are generated in taxes, according to research by the Americans for the Arts. So you can see how the Pearl Center for Creative Arts seeks to not only enhance cultural and social cohesion, but also drive significant economic growth. And it doesn't stop there. Studies have shown that arts and cultural organizations significantly contribute to workforce development. According to the Americans for the arts sector supports 4.6 million jobs and generates $27.5 billion in revenue for local, state, and federal governments annually. This impressive return on investment is something we simply cannot afford to overlook. Now, City Council members, let's get this train on the right track. Prioritizing this project is crucial in honoring the oldest and most beloved heart of our downtown. How can we get this show on the road? More good news. We have a solid framework to model our agreement with the city, similar to the successful partnership the Boys and Girls Club enjoys. This collaboration has afforded them incredible opportunities, and we aspire to achieve the same. In return, we will provide our community with a space where all ages and cultures can come together, fostering creativity and connection. And we are ready to proceed with detailed planning, stakeholder engagement, and securing necessary approvals to make this vision a reality. Our commitment to sustainable design principles and alignment with the downtown specific plan will ensure that this project not only respects our heritage, but also meets our future needs. And I assure you, this is literally the best idea you've ever heard, because it's not just about preserving our history, it's about propelling us forward and being part of something meaningful. We're not just laying down tracks, we're laying down a foundation for future generations to enjoy a thriving cultural scene for artists, educators, and community members alike. Council members, let's not let this opportunity slip through our fingers. Together, we can make the Murrieta Train Project a legacy that you can all look back on one day and say, I was part of that. Let's come together to make this vision a reality and ensure that our community's future is on the right track. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, great.
That concludes public comments, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Madam City Clerk. Moving on to consent calendar, approve of items 1 through 14. Items on the consent calendar are considered routine and may be enacted in one motion and vote. There'll be no discussion of these items unless specific items are removed from the consent calendar for a separate motion. Are there any requests from the City Council to pull any consent calendar items for discussion or abstain from voting? Seeing none, Madam City Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to note for the record, so for agenda item number 12, the staff report, the property sales, the property sales item, it was finalized. After it was finalized, the buyer had requested we make some minor changes to the purchase and sale agreement, such as title company and buyer's naming convention. So with that, some changes were needed to the grant deed and escrow doc. So staff has amended it and is asking that you adopt the resolution to include the authority for the city manager to sign amendments. And staff is available to answer any questions, but they believe that it doesn't need to be discussed at this point.
Any questions? Seeing none, I need a motion and a second. We have a motion by DeForest, a second by Holliday. Please vote.
Motion carries unanimously 5-0, and that includes the adoption, I believe, the introduction of ordinance 604-24, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Murrieta adopting the Town Square Park and Amphitheater. Nope. I take that back. Motion carries unanimously 5-0.
Thank you, Madam City Clerk. Moving on to discussion items. As a result of our previous action, we will take item number 17 before the public hearing items. Staff, may we please have a report?
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. Before you this evening is an update followed by a discussion regarding the future of the Santa Stops program. Ordinarily, Laura Frasso would be up here presenting this agenda report to you, but Ms. Frasso is already hard at work up at the North Pole. Or at least she has a family commitment to attend to tonight, so she begs your forgiveness.
Oh, that's cute.
To keep this item lighthearted, I will attempt to pepper this presentation with verses from "'Twas the Night Before Christmas." I apologize if I missed the mark. As you know, last year, the City Council directed staff to work with a community volunteer group to re-implement the Santa Stops or Santa Stars program. For background and for the benefit of those listening that aren't familiar with this infamous program, it's part of our Holiday Magic series of events. Formerly, city staff, and last year, a dedicated group of volunteers go out into just about every neighborhood throughout Murrieta. Santa Claus himself, or at least 3 volunteers per night that have varying degrees of resemblance to Old St. Nick, stop at predetermined locations and young children line up around the block to present their Christmas list. It's as close to Mayberry as an event can come. By 2019, this event had become so large because of the population that grew exponentially here in Murrieta. It caused us to increase stops from a few to hundreds, and more volunteers were needed, and more funding was necessary, and staffing impacts at the Murrieta Youth Center, Senior Center, and Community Center were felt. And apparently, our risk management office couldn't find the provision in our insurance policy that waived liability for spiriting high school choirs throughout Murrieta on rickety old trailers. Truly, the Grinches of the holiday season began to rear. But what to our wondering eyes should appear? Well, not a miniature sleigh or 8 tiny reindeer. Instead, more bad news in 2020, the dreaded COVID that shut down Santa Stars for 2 years. So yours truly, known as Mr. Scrooge in 2022, recommended that we provided an alternative event of 5 stops in total, strategically located at parks throughout the city, rather than planning for the 10 nights and hundreds of stops. While we generally received positive reviews, it seemed visions of sugar plums were not dancing in everyone's heads. Then in early 2023, out on Town Square, there arose such a clatter, we sprang from our offices to see what was the matter. Come to find out, it was a volunteer group in a fit, and I knew in a moment they wanted to play St. Nick. While I'm being facetious, a community member led by Joni, and I'm gonna butcher your last name, and Joni, I really apologize, Wadowiak. I've been practicing that one, and if you knew my Philadelphia accent, that butchers everything. She's obviously here tonight, along with Councilmember Holliday, worked for several months on a plan to bring back the Santa stops. The goal was to limit the impact to staffing and liability to the city while ensuring safety protocols for all that participated. With those goals understood, the City Council approved a tentative budget and directed staff to move forward with a plan. By the end of the event, the program visited 127 stops over 8 nights with 2 planned rain days, plus an important stop at the Murrieta Youth Center for an inclusive event for children on the spectrum and their families. Each night, 3 different teams consisting of a Santa helpers, choirs, and those assisting with food and toy drive departed on trolleys, bringing cheer into the neighborhoods. In total, 24 Santa spots were filled, mostly by Joni's husband. 24 route managers coordinated between the trolley drivers and city staff. About 48 costume characters welcomed little children, and hundreds of volunteer spots were filled. These numbers do not include city staff that provided traffic control and announcement vehicles. Overall, the event came in at $81,000, and that's an all-in cost. The largest expenses were the cost of renting the trolleys and staffing. Staffing includes public works employees that had to coordinate traffic control devices throughout the week, part-time staffing, and full-time overtime cost. Some minor costs included new costumes, a new Santa tracker, and signage. To help with expenses, 3 donations were received for a total of $13,500. I really do not think I need to spend much time on the success of the program. Each of you were there and witnessed what the staff and community volunteer group remembered from years past, a scene straight out of 'Twas the Night Before Christmas. But you likely also recognize the vast amount of details that Laura Frasso and her staff needed to consider. So that leads us up to the business at hand. Up for discussion this evening is the 2024 Santa Stops program. As you also know, an event of this size is a massive undertaking, and planning begins months before the event. Every volunteer needs to go through a background check conducted at our police station, which creates an impact on our police department. Programming at the Youth Center, Community Center, and Senior Center is scaled back, and sleighs in the form of trolleys need to be procured through an RFQ process. In total, this event consumes 1,000 hours in total of staff time from various departments. After the 2023 program, city staff debriefed with a community volunteer group and discussed ways to work towards sustainability for the future should this city council determine to move forward with Santa Stops for 2024. For example, it is assumed that the community volunteer group will take on an even larger share of the responsibilities, partner with a 501c3 organization or form their own nonprofit, and develop a fundraising campaign. The city will not be able to serve as the agency that collects private donations for this event moving forward. With that said, staff recommends the City Council discuss a potential 2024 program and provide direction to staff on the overall council vision. Examples of questions for consideration that are on your screen before you include, does the City Council wish to continue with the Santa Stops program as a city co-sponsored event for 2024 using the partnership model from last year? If yes, does that assume a long-term city commitment based on a public-private model? If not, should we limit our commitment to an annual basis? Number two, does the City Council want to continue to fund the program at a similar level? We will realize some cost savings from purchases made last year, but expect the event to come in around $60,000 to $75,000. Does the council desire the funding amount to be more or less? Should the community volunteer group be responsible for a fundraising campaign? City staff are not fundraisers. It's just not something that we're good at. If private funds need to be raised, should we discuss an amount and the parameters of such a campaign? Number three, if this remains a city event, could the numbers of stops or numbers of days be reduced? There's a lot of work that goes into 127 stops over 8 nights with 2 dates planned for rain. However, putting stops on the naughty list will certainly generate social media posts. As I wind down my presentation, members of the community volunteer group are in attendance this evening, and I believe a few of them have requested to speak. So I will remain for any questions, and with that, I will turn things over to you, Mayor.
Thank you so much, Brian. I will take questions at this time. Council. No. Okay. Thank you. Councilmember Holliday.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I did want to point out a couple things. Brian, what was the budget for 23?
For 23, the budget, we were spot on at $81,000.
And so we didn't come in over budget?
No.
And does that include the fundraising?
So it was $81,000 minus the $13,500, which comes out to, I believe, 64.5.
Yeah, somewhere in there.
It's late.
And
been here all day.
And so that effectively we were under budget.
With the fundraising, correct.
Okay. And you estimate that about 20,000 of that was in one-time expenses that we won't have to incur this year?
I would say, yeah.
If you're estimating 60 and it was 81 last year?
I mean, a lot of it will come down to some of the decisions we'll need to make, both staff level with council as well as with the community volunteer groups, such as the GPS tracker. Did it work? We think it worked fairly well. Are there upgrades? Is there a way to scale back? There's a couple of things. If we can reduce the number of days, that'll reduce the number of part-time hours and overtime for city staff.
Sure.
So there's variables in that. It's hard to say yes or no. It's more degrees of ability to hit those numbers.
Understood. And I would like to mention, which I failed to do last time we discussed this when we had a review, we did have 4 sponsors from last year in a very short window that we had to get sponsorships. Our platinum sponsor was Paradise Chevrolet Cadillac. We had 2 silver sponsors, West Coast Exotic Cars and Signs by Tomorrow, and 1 bronze sponsor, Casson Klein Consulting. So we certainly appreciated their participation that helped us bring under budget. Yes. Obviously, getting a head start on this year will give us a more advantage to do more fundraising. That is all the questions I have.
Thank you. Councilmember Lavelle.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for the presentation, Brian. I'm happy to hear everything was on budget, and I can tell you from my experience, it was a well-oiled machine given such a short on-ramp. I just wanted to say before public comments, I'm all for the augmenting the public-private partnership. I think there are so many different avenues we can pursue with that one, given more time this year. So I just wanted to put that out there that I think we have a lot of minds thinking about how to make this better, and that certainly should be a focus. That's all.
Thank you, Councilmember Lavelle. MPT Warren.
Thank you, Mayor. I do have a question. if we were to reduce days, the city is growing out towards the east side of town, that we only stopped in one area, a couple areas out there, but with that new development out there and new apartments and everything else, if reducing a day or two, how would we meet our expectations from our community to reach out to everybody?
How would we?
Yeah, would we do
We would have
that?
to make the very difficult choices that of some of these stops, some of the stops will pull up and there will be no less than 500 people, 100 to 500 people. I mean, the crowds are just enormous. And you go to other stops and there just isn't quite that amount.
Correct.
Another thing to take into consideration is gated communities. We're trying to pull back from gated communities. There's a lot of coordination that has to be done with the front gate. Sometimes they don't let us in right away. Senior communities, we go to the Colony and we go to the Knowles communities. And to be brutally honest, the Colony was not a busy stop this year.
Okay.
Now, with every stop that we would pull back, you're probably going to get a phone call or two because they like the program.
Right.
And so hard decisions would have to be made there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, MPT Warren. Councilmember DeForest.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Could you describe what the public-private partnership could look like with this? I know.
Well, it's based on the model from last year. So the community volunteer group coming in and working with us, assisting us, getting the volunteers, getting everyone through the live scans, because every single person has to be background checked. As some of the council members here realized that they weren't background checked during the process last year. It would be the community group raising the funds or walking alongside with a nonprofit partner.
All right.
If I could add also that one of the topics that we've talked about related to that is and I also want to compliment Joni and her team, and they were fabulous in terms of the volunteer commitment that they contributed. And as we talked about, what could that look like? One of the roles, for example, is a base coordinator for the night that's kind of making sure everything is all set for all the trolleys. And they start, earlier in the afternoon and after the event, getting the costumes ready, getting everything set. And so that's an example of furthering the public-private partnership, seeing a volunteer that takes on that role and how we expand that kind of training and getting more people to take on some of those jobs that are where we were looking at where is this most labor intensive and what could that look like and how could we recruit more volunteers just to continue to make it more sustainable going forward.
Thank you for that. I have a couple questions. So the budget was $81,000. And Councilmember Holliday, you were able to raise $13,500, which brings it down to about 64.5. And then one-time expenses that will come off the budget of $20,000, so approximately 45.5. That does not include staff time, correct?
No, that includes staff time.
That does include staff time. Okay, that's fantastic.
Excuse me, I want to clarify on that, though. It's the staff time for the direct cost of the employees that are working directly to do certain things, but there's all the lead time of your Laura Frasso, Brian, myself, Leah, that's from now on, let's say, it's not included in that piece.
Okay.
It's just like during the actual week of overtime costs, public works team, and so forth.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. Councilmember Holliday, do you have a 501c3 that you have? Is there a commitment from a nonprofit to partner with us?
Yes, I've obtained that already.
Okay, so that's fantastic because if you start soliciting now before the October budgets that are created for most companies, that would be a great thing. And also another caveat is that these donors will also have a write-off, which is a benefit. So you may be able to get more sponsors because you have partnered with a 501c3. I agree with that Assistant City Manager Crane and to our team that we need more volunteers, absolutely. And I would recommend that if we vote on this, that the first thing you should tackle is the logistics of it to make sure that however we can cut will be beneficial to the city as well. And hopefully in time, if this does pass, that the private sector will eventually take it over and with minimal participation from the city. That concludes all of our questions for now. I'll bring it back for discussion, but we're going to go now to the public. So, Madam City Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I apologize, I cannot say that last name, but Joni, if you can please come up to the podium. Here you go.
Okay. Good evening.
Good evening.
Okay. First slide.
Pulling it up.
So here are some pictures of the Santa stops from last year. Next slide. Okay. So after the Santa stops, we looked for ways to improve of what we previously did. So I propose that we create a subcommittee of 2 to 4 people, and I list the different areas that we can cover: recruiting volunteers, that would be word of mouth, social media. We're going to need more volunteers than we did last year. That would be gathering and organizing volunteer information, all the different things that you see here, training, sponsorships, which I think are crucial. Let's see. Subcommittee, I think, too, is also important. I'm not going to always be able to do this, and I want to be able to pass this on to other volunteers. So I think it's important to have more people involved than just myself. Okay. Next slide. Another thing that I propose, and it was something that in one of the after action meetings that we had at the city, Kristen Crane also brought up, is a Santa Stops website. That would be a centralized location of information for the community to get information that's not always available, let's say on the city social media platforms or community service. It would also be a great way for volunteers that can register to sign up for the Santa Stops. Last year we had different areas of people signing up through a group here or a group there, and sometimes I wouldn't know who those volunteers were until I got an email late in the day or towards the end when I'm scheduling other volunteers. So this would make it just a one-stop shop. Also, it would give information on the live scan requirements. Each volunteer needs to be live scanned. So if they hadn't been live scanned before, it would give them the information that they need. Also, the forms. We had some volunteers that were emailed a form from a friend and another friend, and this would be forms that they are required to use for the live scan, and it would be password protected. That way, not just anybody could come in and download the forms and take it to the police station to get live scanned. And that's like keeping all the volunteers signing up on the website, and so that we have an accurate account for all the volunteers. Okay, next. So these are just a few pictures of some of the volunteers and the families that we met along the way. It was just a really good experience. And we got a lot of great feedback from the community. And here's a great picture of some of our wonderful volunteers that I have to give a lot of credit to them, because some of these volunteers that are here tonight didn't just work one night, one shift. A lot of them stepped up to the plate when, by the second week, we had a lot of volunteers that got sick. It was, you know, the weather, it was being out there, and we had a lot of them step up and fill in crucial spots for the evening. And there's just more pictures that I just wanted to share with you guys. And you could see the crowds. There was a lot of enthusiasm from the community. More pictures. And hopefully you can play this video. And one last video. This is my favorite. Yeah, that's it. So that's why we do what we do. So
Thank you. Madam City Clerk?
Yes. Patty Macias.
Good evening, Council. I'd rather stick a spoon in my eye than be speaking for you today, but I had to be here to speak my support of the Santa Stops. I was one of Joni's volunteers. I wasn't nearly as dedicated as some of them, but I was there a few nights. It was a joy and a privilege to be able to volunteer. Just to kind of address some of the things that were concerns that were raised by the council. Volunteers. The city of Murrieta has an army of volunteers. Every sports organization, Little League, soccer, so many organizations out here, you have armies of volunteers. The life scan's definitely a hurdle for some people. We just need to open that opportunity to more people. Not really quite sure why we require minor children, people under the age of 18 to be life scanned, being that any record that they might have would probably be sealed. But they're not typically the people we're looking for. So we need to really champion the high schoolers to be able to volunteer at this event. Every single graduating senior in Murrieta Valley Unified School District is required as a graduation requirement to have 40 hours of community service. And they are clamoring for opportunities to be able to achieve that. So I really think it would be a missed opportunity to not incorporate the school district to support us in the volunteer efforts. It's a huge community that we're missing out on. And I think the life scan requirement for them should be waived, being that they are minors. I've been a resident of Murrieta for 34 years, and I've been to many, many city events, including the July 1st, 1991 city inauguration parade. I've seen a lot of things, but I can tell you from my personal experiences that nothing unites the community more than the Santa Stop event, with the risk of sounding impertinent. You're at an event where you are meeting and gathering and assembling with your immediate neighbors, people you wouldn't normally see. It brings us closer together as a community in the most intimate way because we're able to do this with our neighbors. The city birthday bash is wonderful, but it's a very largely attended event, and you might not necessarily see anybody you know. So as far as bringing us together as a community, I think it's a wonderful event. It should continue. I appreciate your support. I would also say I would go away from allowing this to move into a private sector event. I think this should be a city distinguished line item that is done and added to the budget. And we will do everything we can as volunteers to foster private support through donations and whatnot to help offset the cost. But I would appreciate your support in keeping this as indefinitely as a community event. Thank you.
Ms. Macias, I have a question for you. So I love your energy, and I love your suggestion, and I'm going to ask you, are you going to take on that task to reach out to the high schools?
Absolutely.
Fantastic.
Not a problem.
Love it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Madam City Clerk.
Kaylee Johnson.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. I was just coming as a community member. I did not volunteer last year. This was our first year living here in the city of Murrieta, and I just wanted to share our experience as a family, young children, of how thankful we were for this opportunity. Again, it brought us closer to our neighborhood and gave us an opportunity to just have magic in our home and experience something that I had no idea we would be experiencing here in Murrieta. And how lucky and thankful we were to pick a city to raise our family and be able to experience this. So I just want to say thank you for this city for putting on this event for our families, and I hope it continues for years to come for our children. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kathy Bierce.
Good evening. I want to start with the line in the movie. It's called Faith is Believing in Things When Common Sense Tells You Not to. It's done by Fred Gailey in The Miracle on 34th Street. Christmas. April 1996, we moved to this wonderful city. A few years later, I enrolled my daughter in Miss Cindy Angevine's gymnastics, and a few months later, I met Chuck Washington, who at the time was on city council. He stopped and talked to me a lot back then. He asked if I would be interested in helping the city, since I did have a background in city politics. I ran for a seat on Park and Rec, and then I made it. And I got to see firsthand how different this city was from the city of Long Beach. I enjoyed my time on that commission, and I learned so much about this fine city. I lived here now over 28 years, and I've seen many things happen here that I'm thrilled about. Tonight, I'm here to talk to you about the Santa Run. Being on that commission, we had the opportunity to go on those runs with Santa. I truly enjoyed watching children's eyes sparkle when they saw Santa, the school choir singing in the back, the city officials greeting their constituents, and I watched it all, and I have to say, that was one of the reasons I fell in love with this fine city. I understand when COVID hit how horrible that was to this city, and it put many things on hold. But that time of isolation was deafening, and this past year going out and doing the Santa Run, Joni did an outstanding job. And the helpers did such an awesome job. Murrieta, is not just any town. We are a community. What does community mean to you? I'll tell you what it means to me. A feeling of fellowship with others as a result of sharing common attitudes, interests, and goals. In this city, we're driven by each other's goals. We should be. We are truly the gem of the valley. I sat and watched all of you up there, and I'm not always agreed with some of the things that you've done, but I still respect and value each and every one of you. Our city changed with COVID. We're not the same city we were before. Lots of people who live in our city don't know much about it. Isn't that kind of our responsibility to reach out to them? Maybe we have a two-income family that can't come to the city events, like the birthday bash, but we as a city can reach out to the children by having Santa go by. I believe you will all decide this is what makes Murrieta what it is, the fine city that we live in, and that you believe in our citizens enough to give them the Santa Run one night on their block in our neighborhoods. I trust you to make that right decision about your future constituents. When they get older, they'll buy a house in this fine city of Murrieta because of the memories that you made for them and the memories that they'll make with their children. Thank you for allowing me to talk. Any questions? No, thanks.
I have Chris Dowiak.
Hello, Mayor, council members. Thank you for letting me speak tonight. I'm urging you guys to vote yes on this issue. I'm the Santa Stop lady's husband, Chris. I support my wife 100%. She came to me, asked me to be Santa. Hey, can you be Santa? Well, I said yes, kicking rocks, and okay, fine, I'll be Santa. Well, I dress up as Santa. We go on the first night. I think Kristen was my driver. We pull up to that first stop, we get out, and we just see the kids. That last video that we saw, the kids on their faces, that was just one stop, but it was every stop. The kids were like that. The kids were screaming and happy and waving at Santa and jumping up and down. And that's really what the city of Murrieta is all about. It's coming together. It's seeing your neighbors. Like, I hardly ever talk to my neighbors across the street because, you know, they're doing their thing, we're doing our thing. But on the Santa Stop night, everybody in your neighborhood gets together, and it really gets the neighborhood out to talk to one another. Because you never know what's going to happen. Whether we had the Liberty Fire, I got evacuated from my neighborhood on the Liberty Fire. But it was helping that neighbor, hey, what do you need to get out of your house? Because I went to the Santa Stops, you know, and you get to know your neighbors, and you really get to meet them. So I urge you guys to vote yes on this, and I hopefully we have it many years moving forward. So.
Thank you.
Linda Spar.
Good evening, Mayor and Councils. Thank you so much. I'm Linda Spar, and I've lived in Murrieta about 20 years. Like one of the speakers here, I came from LA, and I was so happy because I loved Murrieta. It was just a small town. It actually reminded me of Santa Clarita, where I grew up, and it was when it was really small. I'm a teacher here and in Murrieta, and I'm also a former activities assistant in Murrieta Valley Unified. And one of the things that I learned when I was an activities assistant doing ASB was the importance of student engagement. And because activities, they bring joy. And when you are in a large school and you join a club, it just makes it a small community. And it brings joy because you have like-mindedness in that. In Anita's presentation earlier, I noticed there was a lot of mental health that we're dealing with right now. What is the one thing that helps with mental health? Joy. Santa brings joy. We saw in those beautiful pictures, joy. And Mr. Holliday, thank you so much for your support of this last year. In our city, we have been talking so much, especially tonight, about community. I am so grateful for the market nights. They're so fun. And what does that bring? Community. The farmer's market, what does it bring? Community. The birthday bash, everyone's excited. Every year. When is it? Why? Because it brings community. Community brings inclusion, which brings acceptance, which brings joy. And the city of Murrieta, they pay for those things. These are line items. This is a priority for the city. And as I'm listening, and I love this lady, Joni, she is phenomenal. But guys, it shouldn't be her job. It should be the city of Murrieta. Look at what's happening to our city on these Santa nights. It brings community, it brings joy. And bottom line, it keeps people here and pays the taxes, which pays for more stuff. Guys, joy is the essence of Santa. Again, I shared with you, I came from LA, and believe me, I didn't have anything like that. This is, like our friend said, it's a little bit of Mayberry here, and I'm just wrapping up. As the city grows, like I shared about the big schools, let's make our large city smaller just for a little bit of time. Let's make these moments small, bring our neighbors together for the community, for joy. Don't lose the essence of our city. Thank you.
Tara Rice.
Good evening, Council. I was lucky enough to be one of the volunteers with Joni
And with John, which I have to point out, the picture of him and I, he was the one in the dog costume with me. It was him. He was a champ. I just wanted to come speak to you about my experience, not only as a volunteer, but I was once one of those little kids that was jumping up and down, super excited for the Santa Stops. My family's lived here since 1988. So when Santa Stops became a thing, I was one of those children that would hear the siren. I would come running down the street knowing that Santa was coming with my canned goods in my hand, standing at my White Star. I was lucky enough to have my kids experience the same thing before COVID, which super blessed to have that. I was very grateful to be a volunteer so that I could see the magic in other people, the same magic that I felt. Excuse me, one experience that I do want to speak of, one night in particular, two different things happened on one street. We had a woman who was holding one child in her hand and a picture of another child in another. And she was crying in line. She did kind of apprehensive to go up and see Santa. She had her fellow neighbors pushing her along to go up and see him. When it came to her turn, she held her one child in her hand. She placed the picture of her other child in Santa's lap. Crying, she smiled and she took that picture. Everybody around was crying with her. I had just come back from living in Michigan, so I wasn't aware of the situation. Come to find out, it was a family that had experienced a drowning. Her mother and her child drowned. I don't believe that she would have felt comfortable coming to see Santa in any other scenario, donuts in the park, anything else. She felt comfortable being surrounded by her family, by her community, by her friends, by her neighbors, to take that one last picture with Santa and her children. On that same night, I was a route manager, and I had someone come up to me and say, "We need Santa to go to the end of the street. We have some very important people down there, but they can't stand in this line." I said, "Absolutely, let's get through this line with these kids." So we did. At the end of the street were 5 beautiful women in their wheelchairs, wrapped in Afghans. They were anywhere from, I think it was like 91 to 102 years old. They waited in that cold with their hot chocolate in their hand and their caregivers sitting behind them. They were so excited to see Santa. So not only was it the children that night, not only was it me remembering what it's like for me as a child, my children, how they were, but seeing these older women too. One of them even sang a carol for our Santa. She was so excited to see him. I just ask that we keep this alive for not only us, but for everybody around us, that magic of Santa. Thank you.
Thank you.
Catherine Elliott.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor Stone, council, staff, and fellow residents. I'm one of the many volunteers for Murrieta Santa Stops in 2023. I'd like to start by thanking council and staff for their support of the Santa Stops last fall. As Mr. Ambrose's report made clear, these could not have happened without the hard work and commitment that you and your teams showed. I'd also like to thank Joni and her leadership team that worked tirelessly to make this happen, as well as last year's sponsors. When I spoke to you last August, I highlighted key benefits to the Santa Stops as compared to the Santa in the city parks that was done in December of '22. After being privileged to volunteer for 3 nights, I have to say that my feelings are even stronger. Having Santa come to their neighborhood was truly magical for so many kids. Even after a 3-year hiatus, the Santa Stops did a remarkable job of bringing together neighbors that came out to meet one another and bring their micro-communities together. I appreciate that all of you council members took the time to ride along and experience the magic firsthand, so I won't go into detail about what they were like. I would, however, like to share some experiences that will stay with me forever. And I was on the route with Tara, so those were 2 that I was going to share, Tara. So I won't say those again, but they were just incredible, as she described. Another time, I witnessed a wife sending her husband rushing home to clear out their pantry. She was just like, grab all the canned goods and bring them here. So she waited in line with her kids while he drove to their house to come back with like 2 bags full of canned goods to donate. I also witnessed the sparkle in this little boy's eyes as he kind of shyly brought me up a bag of toys to donate, and he's watching Santa the whole time out of the corner of his eye. It was just magical and precious. Another family had missed Santa coming to their neighborhood the night before. So they had gone online and figured out what it was because they had heard their neighbors talk about how incredible this experience was. And so they made the effort to track us down and come just for their kids to experience the magic. And then you were talking about teens volunteering. There were a number of teens that were there with their families and were like, wow, we didn't know we could do this. And how do I volunteer next year? So I know you've got teens who would be interested. The Santa Stops are an incredibly unique way to connect our community, and I strongly encourage you all to support this endeavor on an ongoing basis. It is part of what makes Murrieta the incredible city that it is. I know that I will be volunteering for Santa Stops as long as I can. Thank you.
Thank you.
Casson Klein.
Here comes Santa Claus, here comes Santa Claus, riding down Santa Claus Lane. Vixen and Blixen and all. Oh, sorry. Sorry, Brian, didn't want to upstage you. Connected by community. What better way than the Santa Stops? You will recall I spoke last year. First, I want to thank Joni and the rest of the volunteers. I think it's incredibly important to walk your talk, and these people have done it. I've had the privilege of being in costume many years ago, and I was one of the sponsors, as Mr. Holliday mentioned earlier, and I will commit to another sponsorship this year. Being that the feel-good portion of it's already been covered by the others, let's get down to the nuts and bolts and the business of it. I'd like to see a comparison of the other city events. How much money do we spend on the birthday bash, and how many community volunteers do we have for that? I see this year that we're now closing down Cal Oaks Road for the birthday bash to keep from traffic. What is the budget for the extravaganza, and how many volunteers do we have? The Father's Day car show, market nights, what else? The bike race. So yes, these are all important events. Other than the extravaganza, I would say none of them are as much for our residents while they draw people from outside. Really, the Santa Stops are for our residents. And looking at it from a dollars and cents, also looking at it dollars and cents, you know, when we don't have Santas here and the big place for Santa is the mall, we've got leakage, right? People leave Murrieta, go to the mall to sit on Santa's lap, and they spend money outside of Murrieta. So, you know, how do we track that? So I would ask you, the council, our representatives, to get that information from your staff. What do we budget for each of the other items? What are the man hours? How many volunteer hours? Let's do a comparison. I mean, if we're truly connected by community, then let's do it. The residents and volunteers stepped up last year like you asked them to do. Now we're asking them again, so we see you and raise you. Thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes public comments, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Madam City Clerk. Councilmember Holliday.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A question I forgot to ask Brian. Do you have the information on the canned goods that were collected last year?
I don't have it readily.
Joni, do you have the count of how many canned foods?
I don't, but that was one of the things that I want to incorporate if we get to move on, is to keep track of, that would be a volunteer position, to keep accurate tallies of all the food and toys that are donated.
Thank you.
Did we fill more than one U-Haul?
Yes.
Multiple U-Hauls, right?
Correct.
Full of cans and toys.
Correct.
Yeah, I had my wife follow behind with our full-size pickup truck, and I was amazed just from one route how much we filled in the back of that pickup truck.
Correct.
And what charities did that go to?
So primarily that would be the United Methodist Church located right behind City Hall, Project Touch, St. Martha's, and Community Mission of Hope.
Perfect. Oh, and did some go to Millvet? Okay, excellent. All worthwhile charities, all doing good things in our city. So a couple of comments. As I mentioned, thank you for the question, Mayor Stone. I have secured the 501c3. I've gotten a solid commitment from them to work with Joni on the fundraising to receive the funds and ultimately present those funds to the city. So that piece has been taken care of. As Casson mentioned, connected by community, there isn't anything I feel, I mean, Murrieta puts on some great events, thanks to you and your team. You know, the birthday bash, Dark in the Park, I mean, there's tons of them that we put on that are stellar events. But nothing, even though all those events are phenomenal, nothing brings the community together like Santa Stops. And I was just talking with some members of the Murrieta School District today, and one of them was telling me, he's like, oh yeah, the Santa Stops came back last year. He goes, I did that when I was a kid, now I'm taking my kids there. And Joni can attest, anybody who went out on the thing, every stop somebody said that. I did this when I was a kid, now I'm bringing my kids. To me, the budget is really minor. It's more the staff effort that has to go into it, which we're trying to minimize as much as we can. I don't agree that it should ultimately be a private event. I think the city should always participate in it, and the city should have a budget line item for it. It should be considered a signature event, in my opinion, because it has that impact on the community. That's all I have for now.
Thank you, Councilmember Holliday. MPT Warren.
Thank you. You mentioned, Joni, and everybody's been mentioning that there'll be more volunteers needed for this year. Is there a number that you have in mind in addition to what you, how many did you have last year, I guess, is the first question.
Madam Mayor, I'm sorry. If we're going to ask questions of Joni, I really need her to come up to the podium.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Minutes
Or
purposes.
Brian, if you can answer them, Joni doesn't have to come up. Do you know how many volunteers that we had? She said about 162.
If you need to come up, that's fine.
Okay.
162 volunteer spots.
Spots? Okay, and you were saying that we would need more this year if we cut back on staff time. How much more do you think we would need?
That would be a Joni question.
Okay.
That would be her for
Okay.
the organizational purposes.
Can you come up, please, so you can answer that for me? So you needed 162 last year with our staff intact.
Yes.
So if we cut back on staff time and staff hours for just the event itself, not the planning portion, how many more additional volunteers do you think you would need on top of the 162?
I would think a minimum of 175. We can also assign more duties to each volunteer. So one volunteer can do multiple tasks.
Okay, that's fair. And then you did mention a website,
Yes.
which I think is a great idea.
Yes.
And would that be something that a private company would build, and then there would be a link on the city website, or were you anticipating the city build that website and then have it adjacent with the city website?
It really depends on direction from the city.
Okay.
How much they want us to do. I'm open to suggestions, recommendations. It would be like a good opportunity for anybody interested. We just direct them to the website.
No, I agree. There's less confusion and more pertinent information on there. I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
And my last question is,
Sure.
I know we had youth last year. Do we have an age limit of how old kids have to be before they could be a part of this as a volunteer?
The city recommended that it would be high school age.
Okay, so 15, right?
High
14, 15? Okay, great. That's my questions. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, MPT Warren. Councilmember DeForest.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So Cindy answered my question about the website, so thank you for that. And I just have a couple comments that You know, I'm sitting up here as, I guess I would have been Scrooge. And then going on the trolley.
Welcome to the club, by the way.
Yes, here we are. Brian, we're in good company, right? So going on the trolley and seeing those kids and seeing our community come together. And I was fortunate enough to go into District 3 and see community, and getting off the trolley and seeing friends and people that didn't even have any kids anymore. They were still there. And that was so special. And it was game changer for me. So I am now out of the Scrooge centric part of my being. But I do think there's some things that we could do, coming from a nonprofit fundraising background, fundraising a lot for the Western Science Center. And we can ask so much as a nonprofit for donations. I mean, we could ask for that website to be donated. We're a city, we're sitting up here and our hands are tied. We can't do that. So I think that moving forward, it would be amazing to be able to really elaborate on that nonprofit and that 501, and hats off to Ron for putting that together. And so that would allow facilitation of sponsorships better, because the city can't really go and take money like that we did, right? It's not something that we want to do. We want to have it donated to a nonprofit, and I think that's better for the people donating as well. So I'm not sure if we should do a small committee of staff and a council member, or two, and then to help this facilitate going forward. But you know, the donation piece and the nonprofit piece, I think we really need to push that and exploit that, because that is what people want to give to. And like you said, the joy, you know, who wouldn't want to give to that joy that was created? So, and I think that's all I have to say. But thank you for your time, the volunteers. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for the emails that I also received. And thank you, Joni, for your dedication and love for our community and bringing it back. And I never thought I would say that. So even though you cornered me in the bathroom the first time, yes, and we'll never live that down. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember DeForest. Councilmember Lavelle.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. You know, I think one thing we have more of in the community than car washes is churches. So I think if we can't get more volunteers, I would be very surprised. So I don't know how many churches we reached out to last year. I know, Ron, your church was involved, but that I think would be a honeypot worth looking into, especially for an event like this during the holidays. The schools, I forget your name, but if you need any help doing that, I'd be happy to help rally the troops for the high schools. And you have a teacher sitting right there. If you want help, I'm not saying you need help, get my number from Tara or Mr. Klein there, can give it to you. The website, creating it outside of the city owning the website, I don't know that I would be careful with us not owning the website.
If I could interrupt for 1 second. If we put a link on our website, it could create the whole website being a quasi-public forum. Yeah. That's something that Kristen Crane and I need to talk more about. Okay. We need to tread lightly on that, but we'll sort that out.
Okay, noted on that. The gated community, one of the gated communities is in my district. We went there and it was hardly attended because they had already hired their own Santa. So I think that one certainly can be crossed off the list. Not that it's not wanted, but it seemed not needed, I guess. And this certainly is about giving back to the kids that don't have those hired Santas coming into their communities, I think. Brian, did you say you had mentioned something in the presentation about it was hard for city staff to do. Was that the canned goods part of this, or no? Did I misunderstand that? The picking up of the canned goods, was that part of
No, that's not
okay.
that difficult. We kind of have that down to a science in terms of collecting it, putting it in the U-Haul, and taking it to the nonprofits.
Okay, I misunderstood that then, scratch that. The live scan, I'm obviously not an expert, but do you have to live scan Like, who says you have to live scan every year if you've already done it? I mean, how does that, is it a law, I guess?
Well, I may be wrong, and if Diego, our Administrative Services Director, we could certainly, if he's not here, we could certainly discuss that in the future. I believe, and Kristen, correct me if I'm wrong, if you did it last year, you would not have to do it the following years. We would still continue to receive reports from the FBI if anything
Or
was.
those people that were live scanned.
Correct, yes.
Yeah, so it was a judgment call because of these people would be around children.
Okay.
Yes.
So we can probably come up with better metrics for who has to live scan this next year.
Well, everyone would have to be. Now, if they live scanned last year, they wouldn't need to this year because they're still within the FBI system. We would still receive their data if they committed a crime.
Gotcha.
Any new volunteers would have to be live scanned due to being around the children. That's
And you
kind
have
of
to
a
live scan with the city of Marietta for this event. You
Correct.
can't, like would a teacher have to live scan if they were a teacher at Marietta?
Yes.
So that's interesting, I guess. I don't know.
It's who. Yeah.
I'm sorry, who gets informed if there is something that is of concern?
Okay.
It's all private information. So if someone is a teacher and is through the school district, they're not able to share that. And so there would be no way for the city of Murrieta to know that about someone and to make a determination. And it's an unfortunate, and we definitely appreciate that it was very burdensome and it doesn't always seem sensical. However, in this day and age, and there are a lot of new laws in place related to people around children, it's really unfortunate, but that is the precautionary measure that the city chose to make sure that we were in good a shape as possible.
I forget if I even got a printout of what the results were, or I assume I passed, but.
No,
So
no, you don't.
that's not something they can take to you. Hey, I'm
We
a
have it in
teacher,
an
I
office
passed.
upstairs.
And if I may, Madam Mayor, to address that. So it's the Department of Justice is the one that we live scan through. And their system is archaic because I've been live scanned multiple times for my securities license and for other things. And I should be able to fill out a form and say, hey, just add this group to my report. Because they're already reporting out, just like teachers, already reporting out to a school district. Just say, hey, send a copy to City of Murrieta. You wouldn't have to do fingerprints, you wouldn't have to do anything. And they don't have that. So you have to do the whole fingerprint thing, the whole background check thing, when they've already done it once, and then do it all over again and send it to City of Murrieta.
So my last question, and you can answer this too, Ron, if you know. It's obviously antiquated. Is there not another body that can do this that is better at doing this?
I don't believe so.
No?
It's all linked to the California Department of Justice. We do it as for our employees, and it's the record that comes back if there's anything that needs to be of concern.
You're saying the government is not efficient? No, I'm joking.
Well, I mean, if I could for that, someone can't just call and say, hi, I'm Ron Holiday, can you give the city access? They need the prints and everything else so they can confirm that that's the same Ron Holiday that they've run before.
But if he were to
So
do
that's
it,
part of the
hypothetically,
process.
he could say, I want Murrieta, Temecula, this to have copies of this, and then click send, right? That would be ideal.
If you're doing it like initially, right?
Yeah.
And I will note, John, that there's a whole chunk of volunteers that have agreed to volunteer again that will not need to be live scanned. So it
Yeah.
won't be the inundation that we've had
That's
this last time.
relieving to hear. Thank you. I'm a proponent to put this as a budget item. I don't know what the amount should be. Just thinking out loud because I do believe this is, although not a signature event, it has the feel, look, and aura of a signature event, probably with greater magnitude than the other ones. So that's my thought on that. And then my only request that in that budget, when we budget, if we budget, to modify the fans and the costumes and the heads because, or let me take it home and modify it, put a DeWalt battery. Something has to be done. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Councilmember Lavelle. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, let me just say, Councilmember DeForest, I was not a Scrooge last year. I did support this event. And I do want to share that I concur with everything that you all said. The experience was magical, that's all I have to say. To hear the excitement of young adults with their children that they were children when this came to fruition many years ago. It was really a joyous event. With regards to my statement about a nonprofit, I want you to be Amy from the Train Lady for a second. I just want you to close your eyes and I want you to imagine something. I really would like to see this become a signature event. But there's a criteria to becoming a premier event, a signature event for the city of Murrieta. When you've been with us, I think, is it 20 years, you get $10,000, Brian?
No, it's a tiered level, but to be clear, if the city is a co-host or a co-sponsor in this event, it wouldn't be eligible to be a signature event. Signature events are only for outside organized private events.
Right, so I'm gonna get to that in a second.
Yeah.
I want you to imagine being a 501c3. There is a plethora of benefits to having a 501c3. Number one, corporations or small businesses, medium and large, are always looking for a signature event to get involved in. But businesses need a tax write-off, and that gives them the benefit. You can do tier levels. You could be creative in saying that Santa Stop, the first Santa Stop, is sponsored by Paradise Chevrolet. You have a premier sponsorship. You could be very, very creative. And I believe that you could raise a lot of money. Look at the canned foods and just the toys that you were able to receive, and they're going back into our community. The money that you'll be receiving, you could give it back to our community, and you can decide on the benefits of where that money is going to go. In addition, being a signature event is that we do provide money to you as well. It's something that I really want you to think about, because as our city attorney and our assistant city manager alluded, that there will be restrictions if you continue working with the city of Murrieta. I just want you to think about it. I really believe it would be a huge benefit. In addition, in the next few years, you're going to see an increase of population in the city of Murrieta, which means that there's going to be more demands on more stops, which means there's going to be more demand on volunteers, which means there's going to be more demand on our staff. One of the things I do have to say to you is, it is unfair that our staff have to be out there every single night during the holiday time when their own families have school productions and Christmas parties. And I think it's really important that you figure out a way to cut back on the days, because we want to make sure that our staff has their holiday season as well. I do want to thank our council. I believe all 5 of us were out there multiple nights embracing this event. So while some of our colleagues may have been Scrooges, they stepped up and they loved it, and you heard their wonderful comments tonight. And I want to thank Brian, who brought council French fries and chicken nuggets one night, and it was cold out there. It was so cold, not you, but it was cold. But you know what? In spite of it being as cold as it was and having the Santa Stops come back to fruition after being dormant for a while, the cold didn't stop people, obviously. The senior ladies that came out, God bless them, that's just such a wonderful story, and there are many, many stories. And this is a beautiful event, and I do want you to know that, but I do want you to think about, I want you to think the word, outside the box, what we could do to raise more money and give back to our community, because we are connected by community. So with that, okay, well, I think, can you take that off, please? I do have a quick question.
Sure.
Councilmember Lavelle had brought up a question about the budget. Are we going to be going with the budget of $81,000 for 2024. Is that part of the motion? That's going to be the budget?
I was actually going to make the motion to make it 70,000 because we shouldn't have the expenses we had last year. Fundraising should be better. Last year's net was 67.5. I had on my calculator, I didn't have my math brain on tonight.
67.5. I was off by 3,000.
67.5. I don't anticipate us needing that because I think because of problems with coordinating with the trolley and the sign guy, we had problems. We only had 2 weeks to raise money. It's amazing we got anything. So, which why the sponsors we had last year deserve a special thank you because it was short notice and they came through. But I don't think we'll need that amount, but I would like to have it so we can be under budget again. So my motion would include a $70,000 budget and for this to be an annual event.
Councilmember DeForest.
Thank you. Do we currently have a line item for this event?
We
Where did the
have in
funding
the
come from?
biennial budget a line item for the 21, the stops, that we did the 5 stops. That's what's in the biennial budget.
Okay, so that was those little Santa stops we had at the community center. And what was that budget again?
I believe that was, it was 15,000 one year and 25 the next year. Yeah.
So how did,
So basically, so we implemented the new program, and that's what's called out in the budget today, in the biennial budget. So in next fiscal year, we'll start working on the biennial budget, the next 2-year budget. We'll have to put in for the Santa stops. In the meantime, for next year, I'm just doing this in my head, for the next year, we'd have to do an appropriation. So that would be, we'll work with Finance Department and Javier's team on that.
okay. All right, thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember DeForest. Mr. Holliday, would you like to make the motion?
I would. Do you have that motion, Madam City Clerk? You need me to repeat it?
I'm going to need you to restate the motion.
So the motion is to have the Santa Stops be an annual program, ongoing annual program, with an initial budget of $70,000 for 2024.
With the potential of fundraising to offset that cost.
Absolutely.
And I hate to interrupt, can you also add that first line up there? Because we have not accepted the donations and appropriated those just yet. It's accept donations from the 3 entities, and that should be 4 entities total, the
Yes.
13.5.
Yes, because the one entity was in kind because he made all the signs for free. So yes, so we, including in that motion is to accept the donation from the 4 entities totaling, it's actually more than 13.5. It's 17,000.
And also a committee.
And also a committee?
I think it should be a committee.
Do you want it to be an ad hoc committee of the city council? Along with the volunteer group or just one council member?
One council member's fine.
Do you want to nominate that council member?
Nominate Ron Holiday
Okay.
for,
Then the committee to work with the volunteer group, which will be myself. Do you need more stuff in this motion? Madam City Clerk?
make that motion.
No, I have that. Thank you.
So let me know when you want me to press the button.
I am not ready. One moment.
I know, she's got to type it all up. That's why I didn't want to click the button yet. While she's typing that up, I will say, the one comment Joni made to me when, I think it was probably the first time we met, and she said, it was not in the bathroom. We don't have those bathrooms here. No, it was at Heritage Hills. I don't remember the event.
That was the bathroom that she got me in.
Oh, that
Yeah.
was. So you were hitting
was
all the
busy
council
that
members
day,
that
yeah.
night. And she asked if I would support that, and the phrase she made, that she said that has stuck with me to this day, is just because the city's gotten bigger doesn't mean we need to lose what makes it unique.
I love that.
And I love that quote, and I will use it forever, so I'm stealing it from you, Joni. I put the city clerk on overtime.
Hats off to our staff for.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know if it was said, but while we're waiting for typing, I just want to say hats off to all of our staff, all of your hard work and dedication to making it happen. It couldn't have happened without you. And thank you. And I know it's holiday time and you don't have the option of not being there. It's called a job, and hopefully we can facilitate some of that pressure off of you so you can go to your family events. And that's why originally I was a Scrooge, because I thought it was just too much during that time of year, so.
And I will say, Brian, I think it was on the last run, the last day of the second week, he comes up and he says, how's everything going? I said, everything's going great. And he goes, well, my daughter just came home from college. I'd like to go see her. I'm like, what are you doing here? That's how dedicated that man was. And Laura Frazzo, she put a ton of time in. I mean, there's so many staff members. I sat here, I could take all night and name all the people, but we have one of the best staffs of any city around. Great. So thank you.
Yeah. All right, so we have a motion from Councilmember Holliday, a second by MPT Warren. Please vote.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Motion carries unanimously 5-0.
Now go to work.
Do you have volunteers and sponsors yet?
All right, moving on to public hearing. The consideration of fiscal year 24-25 capital improvement plan budget and approve the capital improvement plan for fiscal year 2024-2025 to 2028 to 2029. Staff, I'm so sorry, but your presentation is going to just take a little while, and there's been a request to take a 5-minute break, so my apologies, and we're going to take a 5-minute break. Thank you. Okay. All right, we will reconvene. Staff, thank you so much for giving us a few-minute break. So please proceed.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and council members. My name is Jennifer Terry, the Finance Manager here at the city. Also with me here tonight is RN Mendoza, our Financial Analyst, Mr. Jeff Hitch, City Engineer, and Brian Crawford, the Senior Program Manager. Tonight, staff asks that the City Council conduct a public hearing on the proposed capital improvement plan for fiscal year 24-25 through fiscal year 28-29, and consider adopting the budget effective July 1st. RN will provide an overview of the carryover budget and the proposed budget for the new and existing projects. Jeff and Brian will provide a more in-depth project-specific information for their projects. Project managers from other departments are here if you have any questions for projects outside of library, CSD, or Public Works. Before I turn the presentation over, I wanted to point out that of the $23.4 million proposed allocations for the fiscal year 25 budget, approximately $20.2 million, or 86.3%, is allocated from various development impact fee funds. These funds are allocated as a result of the adoption of the 5-year DIF report. The allocation of these funds does not provide adequate funding to construct most of the projects. However, we are earmarking available funds for these projects and will continue to do so until we have enough money to construct them. I'll now turn the presentation over to RN.
Thank you, Jennifer, for the introduction. Good evening, Mayor Stone, Mayor Pro Tem Warren, Council Members Lavelle, Holliday, and DeForest. I'm RN Mendoza, Financial Analyst. Together with me, City Engineer Jeff Hitch and Senior Program Manager Brian Crawford, to present the proposed capital improvement plan for fiscal years 24-25 through 28-29, and the 24-25 CIP budget on behalf of the Finance, Public Works, and Community Services Departments. I'll present an overview of the CIP budget and plan in 5 points, which is the summary, the budget, projects underway, anticipated projects this coming fiscal year, and regionally significant projects. On an annual basis, per California Government Code Section 65090 and 6602B, City Council adopts a public hearing. Through a public hearing, the 5-year plan to establish new projects and amend existing projects as needed. The CIP is a long-range 5-year planning for all individual capital improvement projects and funding sources. The plan prioritizes projects over the next 5 years based on community needs, but only appropriates funding for the first year of the plan. The funding for capital projects comes from a variety of sources, but for the most part, these funds are restricted for specific types of capital project construction. These restricted funds are not available to be spent on ongoing operating costs, such as ongoing labor and maintenance costs. On May 7th, staff presented the proposed additions to the City Council through a budget workshop. And as required by Government Code 65401 on May 8th, City staff brought forward to the Planning Commission the proposed projects in the Capital Improvement Plan for fiscal years 25, and the Commission adopted Resolution number 2024-04 and found that the new projects to be in conformance with the City's General Plan 2035. Very high level, there are 15 new projects that make up the $6.7 million being appropriated for fiscal year 25. The proposed budgets for these projects are staff estimates for each project. If budget revisions are necessary, based on bid responses, staff will seek additional budget appropriations when the award of the contract is brought to City Council for approval consideration. Some of the more significant adjustments to the existing projects are shown in this slide. The changes are necessary to complete the design, right-of-way acquisition, and fund additional construction phases of the respective projects. These changes total to approximately $16.7 million. For both of the slides, the details are indicated or listed in pages 10 through 12, and the detailed worksheets are in pages 57 through 230 of the CIP budget book, which is in your packet. In fiscal year 24, there are approximately $2.2 million of total project costs for completed or substantially completed projects. Mr. Crawford and Mr. Hitch will expand on these items in their presentation. These are some of the photos of the completed projects. In summary, the fiscal year 24 carryover balance is approximately $87 million for all projects, $6.7 million of proposed new projects, $16.7 in modifications to existing projects, for a total of $23.4 million in new appropriations. The total capital improvement plan budget is approximately $110.4 million. The funding sources for the new appropriations are as follows. The use of development impact fee totals $20.2 million. General fund and general fund capital total $2.04 million. Transportation funds total $1.3 million. Special revenue funds at $10,554. And a reduction of approximately $217,000 in Measure T funds. And that totals to $23.4 million in new appropriations in fiscal year 25. With that, I conclude my portion of the presentation. We'll now turn it over to Mr. Crawford and Mr. Hitch.
Thank you, Mr. Mendoza. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to do a little bit of bragging about community services and the projects that we have completed this past year, and looking forward to some more projects that we've got currently underway. So you'll recall we completed the Vietnam Veterans Memorial. That was completed in September of 2023, and we had an unveiling at our Veterans Day Parade. What we did was we replaced the mock-up that was out there. This is concrete and granite construction. It's a really nice memorial, and I think it's really a really nice addition to all of our memorials that we have out at Town Square Park. We also replaced the roof at the library with a brand-new PVC membrane roof. The library at the time was 16 years old. The roof was deteriorating. There was some leaks that were leaking into certain portions of the library. That was completed in November 2023. We have just recently completed Sykes Ranch Park, and this is a project that really highlighted the historical aspects of the park. We have a brand new windmill. We have the old structures that are from Sykes Ranch, and part of the project was also to put historical markers at all of the historical objects in the park, and later on they'll be associated with QR codes that will take you back to a website that will tell you about the various aspects of the park. We are going to be starting a brand new Tot Lot Phase 2 project, which will install equipment at 5 different playgrounds: Firefighter Park, Alta Murrieta, Eastgate, Rancho Acacias, and Sycamore Park. This is going to be starting actually this month, so we're going to be starting construction on that next week. It's pretty exciting, brand new playgrounds for the kids. I also wanted to talk about some of the upcoming projects that we have. We have a second phase of Tot Lots. So this one's a little bit more involved. This one involves construction of brand new playgrounds where none exist today at 2 parks, in addition of equipment at another park, and a swap out of equipment at a 4th park. So these are going to be pretty large scale projects, take a couple months, but it's going to start, we anticipate starting that in July of 2024, and the bids for those are due tomorrow. Also talk about the P word, pickleball courts, and this will start hopefully in summer of 2024. We're going to be bringing a presentation to council on July 2nd and talking about our pickleball construction strategy to deploy as many pickleball courts into the city as possible. We also have Town Square parking lot and the monument at the corner of Calmia and Jefferson. So this is a project with a couple different parts. We've got a almost 100 space parking lot being installed just north of Town Square Park that will service the amphitheater. This includes ADA parking, which we are lacking for the facility. We'll also be installing extensive landscaping along Calmia from Adams up to Jefferson. And then we'll also be constructing a monument at the corner of Calmia and Jefferson that'll have 2 video boards there so we can communicate a lot of the different events and replace those PVC signs that we see on the corner all the time. So it's a pretty exciting event. We're going to start that probably in September of 2024. We'll be putting it out to bid by next month, and construction should be completed within 2 to 3 months. We'll also be putting out Glen Arbor Dog Park. It's a dog park that's being constructed at the bottom of the hill at Glen Arbor Park. There'll be a section for small dogs, a section for large dogs, and there'll be extensive switchback walkways and stairs going down to the dog park from the upper level. We'll also be installing some ADA improvements at that park. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Crawford. Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members. Just going to briefly walk you through a couple of projects that we've had here in engineering over this last 12 months. Just kind of jumping right into it. We've just recently completed an asphalt overlay project on Clinton Keith from the western boundary basically down to Grand in front of the Bear Creek general area. You can see here in the photos kind of what the existing portion used to look like, and then now you have, of course, your brand new paved surface that was 2 inches of asphalt overlay that was placed on that roadway. We should easily get 10 years of service out of that road, moving forward. So it's a nice improvement, and the contractor did an excellent job. First time Onyx Paving was working for the city. Construction costs ended up being around $2 million of SB1 money. Pedestrian safety enhancements, you guys are familiar with that project that we do every year, utilizing community development block grant funds, of course upgrading our ADA facilities.
This is actually reporting the project that we completed at the end of last year, which was about $750,000 worth of pedestrian ramps that we've updated. And then we have an upcoming project to do pedestrian safety enhancements that we'll be putting out to bid later this year, or actually probably early next year. That would be construction for next year. I take that back. I just got that wrong. We're actually putting the project out to bid this year for 2 years worth of projects. That's about $750,000 worth of work. That will be completed the end of this year into next year, and then we have a follow-up project that will be done next summer. As I've indicated before, we have these projects come on an annual basis. Traffic signals, we just started construction, kicked off construction on Washington and Weeping Willow, brand new traffic signal there off of Washington Avenue. That project will be under construction probably for the next 6 months as we wait for the traffic signal poles to arrive and they get those things put into place. And a project that we're working on that's going to be upcoming is the Jefferson and Magnolia traffic signal is in design, and we would anticipate that project to be under construction next year. So that's kind of what we've had going on in the last 12 months, which is actually not a lot, mostly because I think we're seeing a backlog that's now coming up that you're going to see here over the next 6 to 12 months. So moving forward, a project that we've actually wanted to get started previously was the resurfacing of Murrieta Hot Springs Road between Whitewood and Margarita. This is obviously our busiest corridor in town. This work will be done at night. We tried to get this on the list with this last project, and because of the night work, it just didn't pan out that way. We are scheduled to be bidding out this project here in the next month and a half, I believe. This project will be constructed in September. Our citywide slurry seal program, we're doing our next iteration, so we'll be doing about 11 million square feet of residential streets. That makes about 25% of our residential streets in town. This project will be almost $3 million worth of Measure A and gas tax funds, and we'll be starting this project in October of this year. The Murrieta Hot Springs Alta Murrieta Turn Pocket project there in front of Sam's Club. That project we've talked about for several years now. We finally gotten to the completion of this project, and this project will be bid out in July maybe. This will be under construction in probably September. It's about the time frame that you'll be seeing that. That will also be done at night work, being on Murrieta Hot Springs Road. Hot Springs Road widening. So it's all about hot springs these days. Murrieta Hot Springs Road widening is, while it's been delayed quite a bit of late, I am being told that we are looking at advertising this project in August and should have this thing on the ground hopefully by November when we be starting construction. So our plan is to have this before the end of the year starting work. Madison Avenue, Guava to Elm Street. It's a kind of an important project to help with the development within in that particular community in the innovation zone there along Jefferson Avenue between Guava and Elm. This corridor is currently at we're about 65% design on these plans. Would include some work along with Western Water to install some water and sewer facilities down that corridor, and will certainly help to expand the service for that area. That project we think will be in construction in 2026. Like I said, we're about 65% design plans, but there's a lot of right-of-way acquisition that we need to get through. We're expecting to take most of 25 to do that. City Corporation Yard upgrades. This will be adding a couple of new facilities at the yard, two buildings adjacent to the existing building that you see there in red. Those would be housing our public works inspection and parks maintenance workers. And so that is, we are expecting, I believe, to be, I think, looking to acquire the buildings, I believe, here in the next couple of months. Anticipating starting construction on this here in the fall, early winter. Fire Station 1 concrete replacement. This project's, I believe, 65. We're waiting for 95% plans to be coming in. We are anticipating that this project would be under construction later this year, assuming that there's sufficient budget. Engineer's estimate right now is just about $2 million, which is a lot for this, and we may be looking for some additional funds. And just to kind of briefly touch on the projects that you've previously seen at the workshop, this was Line G, a brand new project that we're adding this year to start studying and looking at what it would take to upgrade this channel along Line G that runs along Nutmeg Street, crosses Washington Avenue, and makes its way to Murrieta Creek. We talked also about the Line D box culvert at Murrieta Hot Springs Road, which is another improvement that's needed in order to widen Hot Springs at this location. Development adjacent to the creek channel will be handling Murrieta Hot Springs Road adjacent to it, but they will not necessarily be handling the box itself. So it's an important project for us to get started on. And then our next asphalt overlay project that we're anticipating hitting is Jefferson Avenue from Calmia Street all the way to Ballesteros Road, which is almost to the northern city boundary. Important, pretty long stretch of road improvements for asphalt overlay for 24-25. So we have a busy year ahead of us in engineering. We're committed to trying to get these projects on the ground. That concludes engineering's part of the presentation. Oh, I'm sorry. It doesn't conclude my part of the presentation. Everybody wants to talk about Keller Road. So I think that's really already been mentioned tonight. The environmental document, I believe, is expected to be released in just a couple of months. And the design is quickly wrapping up. Obviously, we're hoping to get this, get all of that completed, as the mayor had alluded to, as far as trying to get additional funding in place. Obviously, once we have our environmental documents in place, then that'll help to grease the skids a little bit to try to get some additional funding. So those are things that we're still actively looking for. And then French Valley Parkway Phase 2 is, it's kind of hard to not notice that going on if you're driving the 15 freeway. That project's been underway for about a year now. It's a 22-month-long project, so everybody's gonna have to bear with that for another 10 months or so as they slowly get that wrapped up. But with that does now, in fact, conclude my portion of the presentation, so I will pass that along back to Mr. Mendoza.
Thank you, Mr. Hitch. The recommendation that is in front of you is as the City Council hold this public hearing, adopt a joint resolution from the various governing agencies, authorizing the use of various funds, approving the fiscal year 24-25 budget, and approving the capital improvement plan from fiscal years 24-25 through 28-29, with the use of various funds, operating transfers, authorizing the use of committed fund balances and unassigned fund balances. And with that, that concludes our presentation, and we are available for any questions.
Thank you so much. Councilmember Holliday.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Great presentation. I love numbers. And you are right. All of you have a ton of work to get done in the next 12 months. So I don't envy you the tasks before you. But I do have one question. Who's the pickleball expert?
That'd be me.
Congratulations. I had a meeting, I think, with Mr. Mailing. He's not here at the moment. Anyhow, I had a meeting with Mr. Mailing last year, I believe, over in Mapleton Park.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a section of the park, I don't know if you're familiar with Mapleton Park?
Yes, sir, I am.
Okay, so if you come in the entrance, you got the basketball court to the left, and you go to that trail to the right, there's a corner there, a grass corner there that's right against the school. And we met a few residents out there that were talking about improvements they wanted to see to the park. And one of the suggestions I made was to put pickleball courts in that corner. It's adjacent to the school, so it doesn't have a noise issue for the school.
Right.
Housing is all the way across the park, away from it.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone thought that would be a great location. Is that on your radar?
Mapleton Park is one of the locations that we're looking at.
Okay.
That we've identified. just to give you a sneak peek of what we're going to be giving on July 2nd, we've identified several locations at our parks that would be kind of eligible for this portion of the program. We're looking for particular sites that are, relatively level grade, don't have drainage issues, because we have a finite budget to spend as quickly as we possibly can and maximizing the number of courts. So we've got a strategy for that. But Mapleton Park is on the radar. Yes.
Perfect, perfect. Yeah, I just had a call from a resident just last week asking a follow-up on that. And I said, well, actually, I think I'll be able to ask that on Tuesday night. So appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Hitch, can you go back to the French Valley Parkway slide? I may be opening Pandora's box by asking this question, but surprise, surprise, right?
It's all right.
I have had a plethora of emails and calls with regards to the, what is it called?
The flyover.
Flyover, thank you so much. That it's going to impact Murrieta Hot Springs in a negative way. Is that a true statement?
I wouldn't say so. I mean, that would be my personal opinion. You can see in the picture here, you can see the flyover kind of outlined in white as it kind of flies over the auxiliary lanes and then lands. As you can see, it lands before it gets to the 215 southbound flyover that's flying over the 15. So, and you can actually see in the upper left corner that's the Murrieta Hot Springs overpass way over there. So this crossing here is some distance south of there.
Okay.
Now over on the right side of the picture, you'll see that's the Murrieta Hot Springs overpass at the 215. So also a little bit of a distance away. I wouldn't think that would create a significant change. Obviously, proof will be in the pudding once this interchange, really gets into play.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for the clarification.
Sure thing.
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Councilmember Holliday.
Mr. Hitch, as I'm sure you're aware, the 215 traffic in the afternoons is backed up all the way into Temecula. Going up the hill, I don't know if people can't step on the gas a little harder when they go up a hill or why that is, but most times you go up a hill, people slow down a little bit. And the 215 with the amount of traffic that we get is pretty much, crawling in the afternoons. So when this flyover and the separation of the lanes gets done, I don't see that improving the traffic on the 215 at all between this connection and Hot Springs, which is already at a crawl. So I see that traffic backing up on the now separated lanes with some on the 15, and I see it pushing the problem to Murrieta and off of Temecula's back. You agree with that assessment?
I think there's some truth, to what you're saying. We are seeing a lot of traffic, obviously, that's heading up the 215 corridor up through Menifee. Obviously, Menifee is continuing to grow. We're seeing a lot of transportation in there. It is something we can analyze a little bit further. WRCOG has been deploying big data, utilizing big data, which basically uses everybody's cell phones to track where everybody's going. WRCOG just provided us a presentation at a recent meeting and Mayor was at, and MPT was there as well. But this big data is really helping to look at how these communities are interconnecting. One of the things that WRCOG was recommending in that presentation was having local agencies like Murrieta and Temecula look at how can we keep local commuters, people that are traveling from. I live in Temecula, as it turns out. I lived there before I started working here, many years ago. Sorry to say that, but I have to travel every day.
So you're halfway there.
And right, but I take the freeway usually when I travel from my home in Temecula to work here. Same in the reverse direction. People even getting off Murrieta Hot Springs Road wanting to go up to the Target up at Cal Oaks, they get onto the freeway. They don't take the side streets. There's plenty of side streets they could take. It's just faster for them to take the freeway. One thing that WRCOG is identifying is, how about we get the people that are driving locally off the freeway? Can we help to interconnect these roadways between our agencies, for example, between Temecula and Murrieta? These are things I think that things that were brought up in that meeting. I think these are things that we are going to start exploring to see if there's things that we can do in that regard. And then continuing to evaluate what traffic patterns are looking like as people that are traveling through. I mean, you can't do anything about the truck traffic that's going to travel all the way from San Diego all the way to San Bernardino.
Right.
That's always going to be there. We might be able to do some things with some of the local people to try to get local people off the freeways and onto our commuter streets.
A couple thoughts I have on it. One, I've been advocating for, Temecula got, I think 5 bypass lanes they're called, where you get on at one off-ramp and you can get off at the next off-ramp without merging into the regular traffic. They got 5 from Caltrans if they put one in. It was nice that they were at that table and had all the other cities helping them to get that. Now it's our turn. Obviously, having that 215 connector have its own lane to get up to Hot Springs would be beneficial for people that are just going to Hot Springs anyhow. And also up the 15 all the way up into Menifee. Menifee would benefit from the same thing, those bypass lanes, since they're not building new lanes. Bypass lanes are the next best thing. I don't know if you're familiar with the Smart Light project that they're working on.
I am, yes.
Do you share my opinion it's a waste of time?
It's hard to see that it's going to be as beneficial as RTC is promoting it, but I'm definitely encouraged using technology to try to solve some of these problems, and I'm hopeful that it will be productive. If there's been some analysis in other countries where this has been utilized, where it has been productive. So
if you had, you know, a moderate amount of traffic and you're trying to just get that traffic to flow a little smoother, and that would be great. In rush hour on the 15,
seems hard to imagine.
You're gonna have the lights stay red for 10 minutes. Why? Because we can only take one more car to keep the traffic moving at 15 miles an hour. Doesn't make a lot of sense.
Certainly, if you're in logjam, there's not much that a smart system is going to be able to help with that.
Yeah, during the normal traffic times, it may benefit a little bit, but it's not going to fix our bigger problem.
Yeah.
Anyhow, but those bypass lanes, I think, would be, and I know the Southwest Elected Collaborative Group that my colleagues are on are advocating for that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Holliday. Seeing no other questions in the queue, we're going to move on to open to the public hearing. Madam City Clerk, are there any public testimonies regarding this item?
Seeing none.
Okay, I will close the public hearing. I'll bring it back for council discussion. Seeing none, we will call for a motion. I see the motion. Councilmember Holliday, second by Councilwoman DeForest. Please vote.
Motion carries unanimously, 5-0.
And thank you so much for your presentation. Okay. We're going to move on to the proposed user fee for Town Square Park and Amphitheater.
Mayor Stone, I will be kicking this item off. Just wait for Brian and Crystal. So together with Crystal Aurora, Management Analyst from the Community Services Department, and Brian Ambrose, Community Services Director, we will be presenting to you on item 16, which is the next step for our Town Square Park and Amphitheater project. And so to give some background and set the stage, a little pun there, talking about the amphitheater. Next slide, please. A few years ago, the city built this beautiful amphitheater at the Town Square Park with the vision that it would be a central community gathering space, which is a perfect use for this area, considering the large grassy area, the tiered seating that can accommodate 750 people, a capacity for the park to hold about 5,000 people, the restrooms, the dressing rooms, the stage, et cetera. And last spring, in 2023, the City Council, working with the ad hoc committee with Mayor Pro Tem Warren and Councilmember Holliday, developed a use policy and a framework for the Town Square Park and Amphitheater with the intention of that being a 2-year pilot, and the key goal being to activate that space for community-focused events. Next slide, please. So to briefly review a few aspects of the use policy and the framework that was adopted back in April 2023, it identifies that the users of the space as being some specific groups that are listed here on the right-hand side. For example, the city and all of our associated uses, various community-oriented nonprofits, City of Murrieta-oriented nonprofits, like the Chamber, the Friends of the Library, Animal Friends of the Valley, and there's many more. Signature events that we do in partnership with other nonprofit groups, local public agencies, civic-focused Murrieta nonprofits that are promoting the economy and cultural uses, and then any city-contracted special event management firm. We set that out as who would be allowed to use it. So it wasn't envisioned to be a space that would be rented for private events like birthday parties or so forth. And likewise, if there's an informal gathering of less than 25 people, like you see sometimes outside, people just kicking the ball around or having a picnic, those are all fine. There's no reservation required, no fees associated with that use, so long as there isn't something else going on. But at that time, we were contemplating that there would be a future special event management partner. And at that time, we were still getting that framework all developed in order to then go forward to the next stage with our RFP. So again, the vision was to use this space to host large-scale community events because they add vitality and vibrancy to the city. That was part of your vision. And again, that was our 2-year pilot with the expectation that we would reevaluate it at the end of the 2 years and we could make modifications based on how successful it was or whatever you wanted. That was a starting point. I do want to mention that we received one communication that was referencing the framework, but that really isn't the focus for the agenda item this evening. There was a reference that we should look at what's allowed in the framework regarding sponsorship by alcohol-oriented uses. And if that's something that the council would want to revisit in the future, prior to the end of the 2 years, we could bring that back, but that wasn't really part of what we were looking at for this evening. So after the framework was adopted last spring, the next step then was for staff to go forward with that RFP process, which we did, and we selected the Newman Hospitality Group, and we're now underway having events. And then a final next step was to come back to you with a fee structure. How would this work if these other community groups want to come and use this space, and what would the fees be for that? And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Crystal, and she's going to walk you through that.
It's a little past good evening, but I'm going to stick to that terminology for now. So good evening, council members, Mayor Pro Tem. I'm here to get into the meat and potatoes of the Town Square Park and Amphitheater fees. First, I wanted to give you a little background on the fees process in general. So in March 2023, a new fee study was adopted after 5 years of no fee changes. Town Square Park and Amphitheater draft fees were part of this original fee change, but due to the City Council objectives and direction for the amphitheater, the fees were pulled from the final update until a final framework was set. If adopted, tonight the Town Square Park and Amphitheater fees will be incorporated into the existing user fee schedule upon adoption and follow the same annual CPI or 5% change schedule. So now getting to the Town Square Park and Amphitheater fees. So Municipal Code Section 3.32 allows the city to recover costs providing services, and Government Code 66013 and 66014 restrict fees charged for services from exceeding the reasonable cost of providing the service. Since parks and recreation fees are just use of government property and therefore should be set based on policy, usage, and market factors. When Town Square Park and Amphitheater was officially opened, staff did a study of surrounding cities in Southwest Riverside County with a similar amenity, and none were comparable. At the end of the day, the cost burden of the city was what was taken into account to develop the fees, including but not limited to repairs, refuse fees, indirect costs, etc. So now I'll take you kind of on a step-by-step of the fees at hand. So this is just highlighting what's included in the reservation. An emphasis that the hourly charge you'll see later is for the open grass space and amphitheater. Additionally, hourly costs for green room and a day charge for storage may apply dependent on necessity. And staff will be on site for restocking purposes and for any other mishaps that may come up or assistance that is needed. The application fee is for the special events permit that is already required of all large-scale events. It goes through all of our different departments, through risk, fire, PD, planning, et cetera, for traffic, public health, public safety. And all deposits are refundable unless cancellations are not performed in a timely manner. I'll touch base on that a little later. The by-day reservation fees are calculated based on a 12-hour day. These fees will remain the same no matter what the actual length of the event is. You'll see here vacant lots. It's specifically for non-parking purposes, which would then be included in the reservation itself, but this is if they have any, can't think of the word, carnival rides or things like that that they want to set up. Dressing room and storage room are not included with the amphitheater stage rental and come with an additional charge. And these hourly rates, as you can see, dependent on weekday versus weekends. Staffing costs are based on what was already approved by City Council in the citywide user fees. So this is pretty much just a one-stop shop for folks to see what they're getting into when they rent out the amphitheater. They are at the fully burdened rates. So more into the late fees. So late fees are in place to ensure that staff time is utilized effectively and efficiently when planning for large-scale events. Timeliness is of the essence. Given the location of the amphitheater, staff are mindful of surrounding neighbors and their peace. The noise ordinance will be strictly enforced to ensure everyone has an enjoyable day during this event. I want to point out that the noise ordinance fee is related to the time cutoff more so than anything. So that 10 p.m. ordinance. Traffic control plans are due 60 days before events, so you will be charged by day that late fee that you are late from that 60-day. So going on to what's next. So after today, this is the first reading. We'll move forward with a second reading on July 2nd, where they would be adopted, and 60 days from adoption, which is August 31st, the fees would become effective. So our recommendations tonight are to conduct the public hearing, waive full reading, and introduce ordinance number 604-24, adopting the Town Square Park and Amphitheater user fees, and find that said actions are exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act under section 15061. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you so much. Any questions from my colleagues? I have a question. With regards to our signature events like the Susan G. Komen Race for the Cure, they receive special funding from us, so are we going to turn around and charge them for these amenities once this is adopted?
So it would come down to actually pricing out the event and then utilizing whatever the in-kind from us is or the support is from us. Obviously, as Kristen had mentioned, this is in line with the framework. It's a, what was the terminology we used? It's a work in progress is not it.
A pilot? A pilot?
A pilot program. Mm-hmm. It's a pilot program. So it's charging them what's on the fees, going from there, and then.
So we will be moving forward in charging our signature event fees?
Yes.
Okay.
So the only signature event, let me work through this here real quick. So you would have the Field of Honor and Susan G. Komen. But yes, the charges for the stage and the amphitheater would be in effect.
Okay. And obviously, we have not charged them until this policy is put in place, correct?
I think their use of the stage has been incredibly limited.
As far as financially or as far as usage?
Both. I mean, the Field of Honor has done, I believe, just one event up on the stage.
think
And we
they
have
do
not
the-
charged for that
the-
because
the-
we didn't have a fee structure in place. They
the
do the opening
readings,
ceremony.
Yeah, and Susan G. Komen does do their event from the stage. And they also use the dressing room. I do know that. Because that's where we meet.
Okay.
And they usually have breakfast, and the media is usually in that room as well. So if this is approved this evening, to those signature events that will be impacted, is it possible for you to send a letter to them to give them a heads up, because this could affect their budgets?
Absolutely, and we've talked to Jill from Susan G. Komen a few times in the past. That
Okay.
eventually there will be user fees attached to it, and they will be at the full cost recovery.
Okay, and then also recently, there was a 5K for, I think, the poisoning. And
The fentanyl awareness.
Right,
5K.
and so all these obviously will be affected by this as well. Okay.
Yes, and if I could comment on that, Mayor, that it is a work in progress, and that's something we've really delicately thought through, is how is this going to impact the end users, and what are any unintended consequences potentially. So with regard to that particular event, there was a cost recovery component for the direct costs associated with staffing, but then as a government agency, we worked with them, and that's the piece. The city manager does have the ability to waive fees up to a certain amount, and that's a policy decision that's something we can evaluate. But it's also something, as we're working with various groups, recognizing the scale of this space and the scope of what somebody could potentially do, that we're not looking for this to be this massive moneymaker back to a nonprofit, and they're not helping us to recover what our costs are to provide that. So trying to find that balance in how they set up their business plan in order for us to not be unintentionally subsidizing more so than we would have been anticipating, and to recover our costs. And this is a $6 million facility, and we want to keep it in good shape.
Absolutely. Thank you for answering my questions. Councilmember Holliday.
So just to clarify, nobody's reserved the park based on these fees yet. They won't go into effect till August 31st.
Correct.
And have we had anyone request to reserve the park?
We've had interest in the amphitheater, quite a lot of interest in the amphitheater.
And are we waiting for this to get put in place before we accept any of those requests?
So we've already passed the framework, and the framework is pretty specific during this 2-year time frame that it's community-based nonprofit organization. So it's not available for the large-scale concert promoters to come in for a private concert.
Okay. So has any of that interest been stalled because of these fees, or it just something that hasn't fit the framework, hasn't come forward yet?
No, we've Laura Frosso has worked with everyone that has expressed interest. I would say by and large, the vast majority of users want to pay very little to nothing for the amphitheater. And so when we tell them there's full cost recovery, the conversation tends to go more silent.
Okay. All right, thank you.
MPT Warren.
I just have one question. The Rotary puts on the Field of Honor, and they've used the amphitheater once, I believe, for their opening ceremonies, but mostly they use this part of the amphitheater, the park section. So there would not be fees incurred with them unless they want to use the amphitheater and the amenities there. Is that correct?
Well, to kind of go from the very beginning, I don't believe that the Rotaries that they don't receive a bill because they're a signature event.
Okay.
So we provide the in-kind.
Okay.
And so they're not spending all the in-kind. They've been here for, goodness, I think it has been 20 years.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure.
So they're at the tier rate of, I think it's $10,000.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
So there's room there if they wanted to use it.
Okay. Seeing no other questions, I will open up the public hearing. Madam City Clerk, are there any public testimony regarding this item?
Seeing none.
Okay, I will close the public hearing. Any additional council discussion? Seeing none, I see a motion from Councilwoman DeForest, a second from Councilmember Holliday, and please vote.
Motion carries unanimously, 5-0.
Thank you very much.
And Madam Mayor, I must read the title. I'm sorry, I'm back from vacation. That includes introduction of ordinance number 604-24, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Murrieta, California, adopting the Town Square Park and amphitheater user fees.
Thank you, Madam City Clerk. Moving on to discussion item 18. Conduct a first reading of an ordinance to amend the Murrieta Municipal Code regarding electronic bikes, scooters, and skateboards. Staff, may we please have a report? Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Hi.
Please proceed.
Have you read it? I was told I was mostly here to field questions if you had any about the new ordinance that I proposed. A while back, I came and did a presentation, proposed that we addressed ordinances specifically to electric bicycles, scooters, and skateboards. We're calling them e-devices or e-conveniences in the new municipal codes. I drafted that with one of the city attorneys, Paul Early, worked very hard on it. And it's just something that I feel that we need so that we can address a lot of the issues and concerns that our community has and that you've personally, one at a time or in a group setting, have shared with me about Murrieta Market Nights and some of the other things that we weren't able to enforce any rules with. And this robust section of ordinance that we've created would address all of those concerns.
Mayor, if I could add, there is no staff report prepared for you tonight. We're just here to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, sir.
And the city attorney may also be able to answer some of those questions.
Great, thank you so much. Do I have any council questions? Okay, seeing,
I have a
Councilmember
request.
Lavelle.
Whenever you give tickets out, can we do the Lego head thing for the kids?
I'm sorry?
Whenever you give tickets out for e-bikes for the first bit, can we do Lego head pictures? Sure. Okay, good. Sure. Thank you.
City Attorney, any questions from you? Fantastic. Madam City Clerk, are there any public comments regarding this item?
Seeing none.
Thank you, Madam City Clerk. Council members, any discussion on the item? Seeing none, I've got a motion from MPT Warren, a second from Council Member DeForest. I think they want to go home. Please vote. Yay. Thank you.
Motion carries unanimously, 5-0.
Thank you, Madam City Clerk. Moving on to discussion item 19, approve the fiscal year 2024-2025 preliminary operating budget for the Murrieta Fire District. Yes?
Do we need to read the title real quick? I'm going to do that, yeah. Thank you.
Sorry. Yeah, it's okay, Madam City Clerk.
The last action on the conduct of the first reading on the Murrieta Municipal Code. That includes introduction of an ordinance number 605-24 entitled An Ordinance of the City Council of the City of Murrieta, amending Title 10 of the Murrieta Municipal Code relating to bicycles, electrical bicycles, scooters, and skateboards, and passenger loading and unloading of vehicles.
Thank you, Madam.
Apologies, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Madam City Clerk. Okay. Staff, please proceed.
Hello again. Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and members of council. Jennifer Terry, Finance Manager. The main objective for this item is to adopt the fiscal year 24-25 preliminary budget for the Murrieta Murrieta Fire District. The city adopts a biannual or 2-year budget every odd number year. The City Council approved the fiscal year 23-24 and 24-25 operating budgets on June 6, 2023. The Murrieta Fire District was formed under and must comply with the California Health and Safety Code. specifically the Health and Safety Code, Section 13890, which requires the adoption of a preliminary budget. Approval of this item will fulfill that requirement. Health and Safety Code 13893 requires publishing of a notice a notice of public hearing. The notice of public hearing schedules the date of the public hearing for June 18th, 2024. The notice of the public hearing was published in general circulation on June 3rd, 2024. And finally, Health and Safety Code 13895 requires the adoption of the final district budget. Holding the public hearing on June 18th will satisfy that requirement. The preliminary fiscal year 24-25 Murrieta Fire District budget totals $24,750,080. This budget is the same as what was adopted June of last year. The revenues are balanced with expenditures with an operating transfer from Measure T of approximately $7.4 million. The recommendation tonight is to approve the fiscal year 24-25 preliminary operating budget for the Murrieta Fire District and set June 18th as the date of the public hearing to adopt the final budget for the fire district. This concludes my presentation, and I'm available for any questions you may have.
Thank you so much. Councilmember Holliday.
Thank you, Jennifer. Just so I'm clear, we've adopted this budget already in our biannual budget.
Yes.
But because of the health and safety codes, we have to do this annually.
Yes.
And so this is just to satisfy that requirement under that code to re-adopt what we've already adopted, and it has not changed.
That is correct.
Perfect.
Madam City Clerk, are there any public comments regarding this item?
Seeing none.
Thank you. Any discussion from my colleagues? Seeing none, I see a motion. Councilmember DeForest, MPT Warren is second. Please vote.
Motion carries unanimously, 5-0.
Thank you, Madam City Clerk. Moving on to governing body announcements. The governing body announcements is an opportunity for City Council to provide miscellaneous reports and announcements. Announcements shall not exceed 2 minutes. The City Clerk will use the computerized timer. Councilmember DeForest.
You can start the timer now, but you can see my activities that I went to. I'll file that, and I'll say that I'll be very fast, short, and sweet. Thank you so much. And you can contact me. My cell and email is listed there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember DeForest. Councilmember Lavelle.
Got two. First one is the International Council of Shopping Centers. So I went with all of you guys, or all four of you. Councilwoman DeForest wasn't there. Happy to say, had a great time meeting with businesses and you know, a lot of potential people interested in Murrieta. It was great to be there for my first time, and had a good time at Topgolf. And the pictures are from the new Kaiser Wildemar location ribbon cutting that I think was on the 19th of May. So, and that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Lavelle. Councilmember Holliday.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just wanted to note that Councilwoman DeForest didn't make ICSC because of a medical issue with her husband. Not that she didn't want to be there. So,
I didn't say that.
But she was missed.
HIPAA, Ron.
Thank you, Ron.
I didn't say what it was. I just have a couple. We haven't had a council meeting since the State of the City, and I've got to say that staff and our mayor put on a phenomenal State of the City.
Thank you.
So well done. Continues the tradition of having better states of the city than every other city in this area, especially Temecula, who, if they're listening, stop doing it at 7 o'clock in the morning down at Pachanga.
We didn't attend.
Huh?
You didn't go.
I know it ain't, there's a reason. So that was phenomenal. Went to our police department awards, always a good job, Mr. Conrad, Chief Conrad. Great to see all the amazing personnel that we have in the police department. So that was exciting. And the last thing I wanted just to highlight was the Murrieta Through Time dedication ceremony. If you haven't had a chance, there's slabs of granite, I think, something out there that have the plaques on them and the narrative of Murrieta Through Time, starting with the Pachanga Band of Lisueño Indians and how long they've been here, all the way through to recent history. Cities and Corporation, I think, is on there. Anyhow, it's worthwhile to go out there and take a look at that. The Rotary was participated in that, but it's adds to all the stuff we have in Town Square Park. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Holliday. MPT Warren.
Mine are listed. Pardon me, they're going to put them up. I'm going to say receive and file. And Chief Conrad, I love the award ceremony. It was really, it's so great to see what a great job our police department does in our community. It's amazing. So you have a great team there. Also, State of the City, outstanding, fabulous, and wonderful. I can't say enough about what a great night it was. And the three of us froze at the Murrieta Mesa High School graduation that we thought we were going to be dying of heat stroke. Instead, we were freezing. So we had the opportunity to go there, and it was a lovely ceremony. And it's always great to see these young kids graduating, and can't wait to see what their future holds for them. That concludes my report.
Thank you, MPT Warren. You will see a list of my governing body announcements, which you can review on our website. I do want to just give a special thank you to Christina. You were such a delight to work with, and I love how you took my ideas and my suggestions and you thought outside the box. And the State of the City, the comments that I've received, it's really to you because you did such an amazing job in assisting me, and I just wanted to thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. It was really a beautiful evening, so thank you so much. Okay, with that, we will move on to council member requests to add or withdraw items from future agendas. Now is the time for council members to request to add or withdraw items to future agendas. There will be no discussion on the request. A brief explanation of the request may be given. The merit of the items being requested may not be discussed or debated. Now, are there any requests from my colleagues?
I clicked the button.
Councilmember LaBelle.
I'd like to have a discussion about Cal Cities and get some input on what they are, what they do, and just have a discussion with you guys up here.
Without staff input?
With staff input, I guess it could just be what they provide to the city, just a very high level.
I'm always in support of conversation between us that doesn't involve a ton of staff time.
I agree. If I want that, if potential action out of that discussion, do I need to say that now?
No.
Yes? No?
No?
Okay, then that's all I want.
Okay. So we have a second, and any other council comments? I will concur with Councilmember Lavelle, so we have a consensus.
Consensus?
Yes.
Yes, so based on that request and timing to put together an agenda report and address that and where we're already at and working on items for June 18th, I'd recommend that the date for that would be July 2nd or thereafter.
Totally fine.
Okay.
Fantastic. Thank you,
July 2nd
Councilmember.
or thereafter. Is that
Yes.
okay? All right, great. Thank you.
Councilmember Lavelle. Tonight, we will adjourn in memory of Joan Swift Padberg. Joan Swift Padberg was born on September 7th, 1935, and entered heaven on March 17, 2024. Joni was a resident of Murrieta for 41 years. She was 88 years young. In 1987, Joni founded the Country Review magazine, where my young son assisted Joni in hand-delivering her magazine throughout our valley. For 20 years, her husband Brian wrote monthly in the Country Review magazine, month in, month out, through the boom times and near bust times. Her name to fame was her yearly publication of Gals with Grit, featuring many women leaders in our valley, such as Melissa Donaldson, Linda Wunderlich, and Joan Sparkman, to name a few. Her magazine touched upon issues that were important to her readers, such as early detection of breast cancer information, a story about the Holocaust, which was written by Peggy Nash, another community leader who also has passed, women in politics and domestic violence, just to name a few. She was extremely generous to our nonprofits and always extending an opportunity for a write-up in her wonderful magazine. Joni was a trailblazer, a mentor to many women in our community, and to me, a second mother. May the wonderful memories of Joni bring smiles to her loved ones' hearts for a lifetime. May she rest in peace. I'd like to invite her son, Caston Klein, to say a few words in her honor.
Thank you, Lori. I've often talked about my stepdad and the contributions that he's made to this city and this valley. But there's an adage: behind every good man is a woman. But that's not accurate, because my mom didn't stand behind my stepdad or my dad. I was very fortunate. I had two dads. My mom chose. Why am I so passionate and often aggressive about Murrieta? It's the fairness that my mom instilled in me. And as you said, Lori, the trailblazing she did here with many others. You know, my mom kicked my dad out of the house in 1970 and went to work in a man's world. That was pretty much the beginning of Women's Lib. She sold advertising and print advertising. And when I look up here, I look at the three of you elected females. I look at our staff, the directors are females. And I think of my mom. I'm going to share a little on that, a little inside baseball about me. But I see that in all of you females, even as critical as I am of you. But part of me sees my mom in all of you because of what you do, the leadership you provide. Thank you.
Thank you. Without any further business, this meeting is now adjourned.